Chapter 2651. 2651 Uncanny Sight. 2651 Uncanny Sight. Miao Hua dazedly stared at Ling Han. He was completely unable to accept this result. Elites and freaks like them had already reached the peak of cultivation, yet Ling Han had actually employed such a technique? He had chosen to exchange a wound for a wound. No, Ling Han had indeed been wounded. However, Miao Hua had been killed. Miao Hua was filled with puzzlement. Ling Han had clearly been struck by his spiritual attack, so how had he remained unaffected? Moreover, his hand had clearly been shattered, so how had he remained so calm? Moreover, Ling Han's attack had directly obliterated Miao Hua's bones and internal organs, and caused Miao Hua to instantly become sluggish. It was because of this that he had been unable to dodge Ling Han's sword. Why? He died in confusion. At this moment, Xueqi's attack finally arrived, with his spear stabbing at Ling Han. Ling Han retreated and unleashed his body art. Pang! He immediately accelerated, dodging the spear by mere millimeters. Ling Han looked at Miao Hua and said, "If you knew about what I've experienced these years, you wouldn't be surprised by my resilience and endurance. Moreover, I've already mastered the 5 elements lightning technique, and this is a heavenly venerate technique, so it's only natural that you weren't able to withstand it." During the past 5 million years, Ling Han's body would erupt once every 1,000 years. Thus, compared to this pain, what did a shattered hand matter? Similarly, after enduring such pain over and over again, what effects could a spiritual attack still have on him? After enduring such attacks enough times, one would naturally develop immunity to them. However, Miao Hua was still unable to accept this. He slowly exhaled. This was his remnant resentment and vexation. His head then flopped to the side, signifying his demise. His mind had been obliterated, and this was something that even 9th Heaven Celestial Kings couldn't survive. Ling Han casually retrieved Miao Hua's spatial celestial tool. He then channeled the indestructible Heaven Scroll, immediately starting to heal his broken hand. However, this was an extremely slow process. After all, this wound had been caused by a celestial tool, so a fearsome destructive power continued to rip through his hand, preventing it from healing. Xueqi took a deep breath, saying, "Who would have thought that you've already become this powerful?" In the blink of an eye, Ling Han had already caught up to Xueqi. Miao Hua, someone equally as powerful as him, had more so been killed. This wasn't because Miao Hua was weak. Instead, it was because Ling Han had been far too brutal. He had opted to exchange a wound for a wound, a life for a life. Miao Hua hadn't been prepared for such ferocity. You're unafraid of spiritual attacks, and you've more so mastered a complete heavenly venerate technique. I've underestimated you, Xueqi said. However, he was unafraid. He gripped his celestial spear tightly, and his fighting spirit soared into the sky. Ling Han smiled faintly. In fact, he hadn't needed to be so brutal. However, even if his battle prowess could suppress that of Xueqi and Miao Hua, if they were intent on fleeing, whom would he pursue? No matter whom Ling Han pursued, the other would be able to escape. If Ling Han wanted to kill them in the future, that would be incredibly difficult. Thus, Ling Han had decided to take a gamble. Risking a severe wound, he resolutely killed Miao Hua. Now, even if Xueqi wanted to flee, Ling Han wouldn't have to worry. He was confident that he could kill the former no matter what corner of the world the other party fled to. Moreover, with the two of them cooperating, Ling Han might not have been their match. This was to say nothing of killing them. Since that's the case, why don't you kneel down and accept death? Ling Han said calmly. I'm no Miao Hua. Xueqi scoffed. I'm not as conceited as him. Then come battle, Ling Han said as he leaped forward. Pang! He unleashed an astounding power, instantly arriving before Xueqi and thrusting his sword. Ding! Xueqi raised his spear to block Ling Han's attack. Haha! Just as I expected. Even though you've advanced to the 7th heaven, the rise of your battle prowess is lagging far behind this level, Xueqi said with laughter. Otherwise, he would have fled long ago. Ling Han's flurry of slashes was like a downpour of rain. During the past 5 million years, his body art had indeed improved. However, this improvement hadn't been significant.
After all, he had been cultivating with no external help, so how could he soar into the skies in a single bound?
Ling Han appeared indifferent at this moment, merely exchanging strikes with Xueqi. He was waiting for his left hand to recover so he could summon the 5 elements lightning technique again. At that time, Xueqi would know the meaning of regret. Being a spectator and being the actual person involved were completely different experiences. A complete heavenly venerate technique was far too terrifying. Ding ding ding. The two of them were locked in an intense battle. Even though Xueqi's words were tough, after failing to suppress Ling Han after several attempts, he started to show signs of wanting to leave. This was because Ling Han wielded the divine demon sword, a celestial tool that could suppress his spear. If they continued to battle, he would be at a huge disadvantage.
Without the slightest hesitation, he immediately turned around to leave.
Ling Han gave chase. This time was different from last time. He had already obtained the inheritance of the 5 elements lightning technique, so there was no reason for him to stay. One fled, and one pursued. Xueqi's goal was very clear.
He was charging toward the uppermost level of the palace, and searching for the rumored passageway that led out of the Celestial King graveyard. Even though Xueqi had failed to kill Ling Han, he had still soared from the early stage of the 7th heaven to the late stage of the 8th heaven in just 100 million years. Was this improvement not impressive enough? This was already enough. Thus, he decided to leave the Celestial King graveyard first. In any case, he could re-enter in the future to obtain the final inheritance of the 5 elements lightning technique. Someone like him naturally knew when to fight for something and when to retreat. He understood how to weigh things up. Ling Han pursued him relentlessly, with his divine demon sword slashing without mercy. He definitely wouldn't allow Xueqi to escape. They continued upward, quickly arriving on the 18th floor. They then entered the 20th floor, the 30th floor. When they arrived at the 33rd floor, they were both given a start, stopping in their tracks. This was because this floor wasn't empty anymore. Instead, there were numerous giant eggs on the floor, with each being 2 persons tall. Their girth was also wider than what 2 people could embrace. They were ink black in color, and they were also surrounded by wisps of rising black air. This was an uncanny scene. Row after row, column after column, the eggs were dense and boundless. According to rumors, there was an ultimate inheritance hidden here, and there was also a passageway to leave the Celestial King graveyard. What in the world was this, then? Xueqi glanced at Ling Han before dashing forward again. Meanwhile, Ling Han looked at his right hand. A new hand had already grown from his wrist, and the final finger had also finished growing. This signified that he had completely recovered from Miao Hua's strike. Ling Han accumulated some power before bending his knees and lunging forward. At the same time, he also activated the regulations of time and the regulations of space. With his wound healed, he no longer had anything to fear, so he unleashed his full strength. Even though Xueqi wasn't facing Ling Han, his divine sense was naturally aware of his surroundings. Thus, he could clearly see Ling Han catching up to him at an incredible speed. At the same time, Ling Han's sword pierced at his back. If Xueqi didn't block this strike, he would be seeking death. Ding! He turned around and swung his spear, catching the divine demon sword and pushing its tip aside. Boom! Just how terrifying was the battle prowess of these 2 supreme prodigies. Their exchange instantly unleashed a ferocious shock wave into the surroundings. The surrounding eggs bore the brunt of this shock wave. Crack, crack, crack. They all split apart. However, in an uncanny sight, only the outer layer of the eggs crumbled.
The black mist dissipated, revealing an almost transparent inner shell. Ling Han had initially wanted to launch another strike.
However, upon seeing the matter in the eggs, he involuntarily stopped.
Inside these eggs were people. Each egg held a person, and it was as if these people were in a deep slumber. Their arms were wrapped around their knees, and they were curled up like a ball. They were completely naked, yet they were astoundingly surrounded by 9 ribbons of iridescent light. 9th Heaven Celestial Kings. Heavens! Each egg held a 9th Heaven Celestial King.
It was as if they were dormant and undergoing some kind of transformation.
Ling Han finally understood why he hadn't come across any 9th Heaven Celestial King.
However, knowing this was one thing.
Right now, he was even more puzzled. What the fuck was happening here? Chapter 2652. 2652 Hidden Mastermind. 2652 Hidden Mastermind. Xueqi also stopped in his tracks. This was completely different from the rumors.
That being the case, it was very likely that there was no ultimate inheritance, nor was there any passageway to leave the Celestial King graveyard.
Instead, this was more like the ultimate resting place for Celestial Kings. More frighteningly, just how many Ninth Heaven Celestial Kings were in this place? If they attacked in unison, even first-tier heavenly venerates would have to step aside in retreat. Thus, how were they all captured?
By the looks of them, they clearly hadn't been wounded.
That being the case, who possessed such astounding might? Not only had they captured so many Ninth Heaven Celestial Kings, but they had even done so with ease, not needing to injure these Celestial Kings at all. Even first-tier heavenly venerates couldn't do this, right? Ling Han had no spare time to chase Xueqi. Instead, he gripped his sword and focused his mind to the extreme, ready to face any sudden change. Xueqi's reaction was identical. If they continued to battle, they would be nothing more than utter fools. Sigh. A long sigh echoed through the large hall, making it impossible to determine where it had come from. Why be so pretentious? Show yourself. Ling Han roared. Heh, I'm not being pretentious, the voice said. A person in black immediately walked out from behind a pillar. Their entire body was hidden by a black cloak, one that even the divine senses of Celestial Kings couldn't see through. Desolate moon, Ling Han said in a solemn voice. Only a single person would dress like this. The person in black chuckled, saying, Indeed, I am Desolate Moon. His voice was flowy, and it was hard to determine whether they were male or female. Xueqi pointed at the giant eggs and asked, What's going on here? Oh, why should I tell you? Desolate Moon replied calmly. It looks like everything is under your control, so why don't you share this information with us? If there's no one to share the joy of victory with, won't that greatly reduce your sense of achievement? Ling Han said with a smile. With your own abilities, you were able to trick all of the Celestial Kings in the Celestial King graveyard. This is a huge achievement, no? Ha ha ha. Desolate Moon laughed heartily, saying, That's right, I do indeed feel very smug. However, I've always been a cautious person. What if you two manage to escape after learning my secret? Won't that ruin my grand plans? This person was truly careful. Then I'll force you to speak. Xueqi roared as he charged forward. Swoosh! His spear thrust forth. Desolate Moon didn't dodge, nor did he show any signs of blocking this strike. However, just as Xueqi's attack was about to strike him, the spear suddenly stopped, unable to advance another inch. An expression of struggle spread across Xueqi's face. In fact, sweat started to drip down his forehead. However, his spear was still unable to advance. Ling Han felt deep apprehension in his heart. Desolate Moon's abilities were far too terrifying. Without lifting a single finger, he defeated Xueqi, a supreme monarch star with a battle prowess at the late stage of the ninth heaven. Was he perhaps a pseudo-heavenly venerate? Desolate Moon extended a hand. He wasn't quick, and it was as if he were casually raising his hands. He then grabbed the spear and pushed it back slowly, causing the blade of the spear to immediately point away. How strange. Why are you completely defenseless before me? He looked at Xueqi before continuing. The reason for this is very simple. That's because something within you is being controlled by me. The more powerful you are because of this matter, the more you'll be controlled by me. A thought suddenly occurred to Ling Han, and he exclaimed, That black energy! He finally understood how so many Ninth Heaven Celestial Kings had been captured by Desolate Moon without suffering any wounds. This was because they all had black energy within them. And as long as they had black energy within them, they would be controlled by Desolate Moon. However, controlling them was one matter. Why did he need to place so many Celestial Kings in such a strange manner? What in the world was he trying to do? Indeed, you're very smart. However, it's already too late. Desolate Moon raised his arm at Ling Han as if he wanted to control him as well. However, he immediately faltered. If he weren't wearing the cloak, perhaps the astonishment on his face would be evident. Fuck! Why can't he be controlled? In his eyes, all of the celestial kings were his pawns. What did it matter that they were powerful ninth heaven celestial kings? Unable to contain their cardinal sin of greed, they were destined to fall under his control. Now, however, someone had actually managed to escape his control. He was naturally astounded. "You're actually unaffected?" Desolate Moon said coldly. He had already regained his composure. What did it matter that Ling Han couldn't be controlled? He was only a seventh heaven celestial king. Ling Han smiled and said, "Not everything can always be under your control, right? Humph. You think you still have the chance to escape after entering this place?" Desolate Moon swept his hand over Xueqi's head before roaring with laughter, and saying, "Who would have thought that this brat detested you so much? Very well. I'll give you the opportunity to exact revenge." He tapped a finger on Xueqi's forehead, causing countless dazzling particles to instantly funnel into his body. Ling Han raised a brow. The complete 9 transformations divine scroll? He had practiced 3 scrolls, so he was extremely sensitive to this. "Correct," Desolate Moon said with pride. "Sure enough, everything was planned by you all along. However, I still don't understand. What's the point?" Ling Han said.
"If you allow this black energy to enter your body, I can satisfy your curiosity," Desolate Moon replied as he raised his right hand. Boom! A wisp of black energy immediately materialized in the air, swirling around his hand. "This can bestow you with a boundless battle prowess. Open your arms and embrace it. Accept this paramount power. It shall give you a new life." Ling Han scoffed and said, "Load of sich asterisk T." Desolate Moon didn't speak to him anymore, instead waving a hand and saying, "Go on, go over and suppress him. However, make sure not to kill him. This person is destined to become a heavenly venerate, so he'll be an incredibly important piece." These words were targeted at Xueqi. The latter had still been in a state of stupefaction just then, but his eyes immediately moved upon hearing this. He then turned around to face Ling Han. "Another battle?" Ling Han brandished his sword. He was naturally unafraid of Xueqi. However, Xueqi was a puppet now, so this made him feel like he had to win. "Die!" Xueqi roared, raising his spear and charging forward. His celestial king power radiated, and his battle prowess soared. Ding! The two of them exchanged a blow, and Ling Han was involuntarily astonished. This was because Xueqi's strength had surprisingly increased by a notch. This was because of the 9 transformations divine scroll. In such a short period of time, Xueqi had already grasped the 4th scroll of the 9 transformations divine scroll, allowing his battle prowess to increase a notch. Even though this wasn't shocking, it was still impressive nonetheless. They continued to do battle. Even though Xueqi was being controlled by someone else, his fighting spirit and capabilities remained completely unaffected. His strength was fully unleashed. In terms of battle prowess alone, he was already no match for Ling Han. He was at a slight disadvantage. Even so, he was completely able to resist and hold on. After 15 minutes, Xueqi's battle prowess suddenly increased by another notch. He had grasped the 5th scroll of the 9 transformations divine scroll. This was simply incredible. How was it possible to comprehend a heavenly venerate technique so quickly? Ling Han refused to believe that Xueqi possessed such a powerful comprehension ability. As such, there was only a single explanation for this: Desolate Moon. More precisely, this was related to the black energy within Xueqi. Ling Han couldn't help but feel astonished. If Desolate Moon trained all of the celestial kings here to the 9th heaven and then controlled them to charge out, just how devastating would their destructive power be? What in the world was this person planning? Die! 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 Xueqi's battle prowess continued to increase. Chapter 2653. 2653 Desolate Moon's True Identity. 2653 Desolate Moon's True Identity. Ah! Xueqi roared in rage, with all of his veins bulging and his black hair billowing into the sky. He could already channel the complete 9 transformations divine scroll, which caused his battle prowess to become petrifying. However, how could a complete heavenly venerate technique be used for an extended period of time? Even as powerful as the Imperial Void Celestial King was, he could only activate the Dragonfish technique for a limited amount of time. Meanwhile, Xueqi wasn't even a 9th Heaven Celestial King, so he naturally couldn't activate the 9 Transformations Divine Scroll for very long. Moreover, it took a huge toll on his body. Pa pa pa. Some of his veins directly exploded, drenching him in blood. However, this blood transformed into numerous symbols that aided him, causing his battle prowess to increase even further. Boom! His celestial spear was like a divine dragon as its murderous aura soared into the sky. At this moment, Xueqi was unbelievably powerful, turning the tables and suppressing Ling Han instead. This was a complete heavenly venerate technique, so unless Ling Han also activated a complete heavenly venerate technique, how could he possibly rival it? Ling Han's gaze was intense as he mulled over whether he should activate the 5 elements lightning technique. However, if he used it against Xueqi, how would he deal with Desolate Moon afterward? Even though Desolate Moon hadn't revealed his power yet, Ling Han was certain that the former was incredibly powerful. Moreover, if Desolate Moon woke all of the 9th Heaven Celestial Kings here, Ling Han would have no option but to flee. Only with the 5 elements lightning technique would he be confident that he could carve out a bloody path. However, Xueqi wouldn't consider so much. Right now, there was a black gleam expanding in his eyes. Eventually, it filled his entire eyes. It was as if he had lost his mind and become nothing more than a tool of slaughter. Sure enough, this black energy looked like it could increase one's battle prowess, but it was instead a poisonous pill. Right now, Xueqi was tasting the bitter results. At this moment, was Xueqi still himself? Pa pa pa. Xueqi's skin continued to crack and explode. Even so, he continued to channel the 9 Transformations Divine Scroll. However, heavenly venerate techniques couldn't be channeled forever, or else one would definitely have to pay a huge price. Right now, Xueqi was using a self-harming method to maintain the circulation of this heavenly venerate technique. What he received in return was overwhelming power. Ling Han had no option but to channel the indestructible Heaven Scroll. He was still reluctant to use the 5 elements lightning technique. Boom, boom, boom. His body was covered in golden symbols, which caused his defenses to improve exponentially, and allowed him to face Xueqi's attacks without being injured. However, Ling Han could only channel the indestructible Heaven Scroll for around 2 hours. What would he do after this? Desolate Moon laughed as he watched on. He was like a passerby enjoying the show. Pa! One of Xueqi's fingers directly exploded into pieces. However, his blood transformed, allowing him to continue channeling the 9 Transformations Divine Scroll. At the same time, a wisp of black energy rose from his severed finger, replacing it and making it seem as if the finger had never disappeared in the first place. Pa! Before long, another finger burst apart, and was replaced by another wisp of black energy. Then the third, the fourth. When all 10 of his fingers disappeared, his toes started to explode as well. Then it was his other bones. With each bone that exploded, a wisp of black energy would replace it. This allowed him to maintain human form. It also allowed him to continue channeling the 9 Transformations Divine Scroll. 2 hours quickly passed, and Ling Han was unable to channel the indestructible Heaven Scroll any longer. The golden symbols on his body started to flash and dim. Meanwhile, apart from the head, Xueqi's entire body had already been replaced with wisps of black energy. Desolate Moon sighed, saying, "If you continue, you'll truly become a cripple. Forget about it. Move aside." He finished speaking, yet Xueqi didn't obey his command. Instead, he continued to battle. Ha! Desolate Moon was slightly astonished. Even he found this strange. Boom! Xueqi suddenly unleashed a powerful aura, furiously turning his spear around and thrusting it at Desolate Moon. This clearly caught Desolate Moon by surprise, and he faltered for a moment before reacting. However, could one falter during a battle between celestial kings? Pooh! The spear pierced through his cloak and exited through the other end. Don't even dream of controlling me, Xueqi. Xueqi bellowed in rage. The black in his eyes dissipated as he said this.
Ling Han was also given a start. He hadn't imagined that Xueqi would regain his consciousness at the last moment, also giving Desolate Moon a fatal blow. It had to be said that Xueqi was indeed a supreme monarch star. He was indeed a big shot from the world's paramount martial academy. Damn it! Desolate Moon roared in rage. Pang! He waved a hand and struck Xueqi's chest. Pang! Xueqi immediately exploded. Right now, apart from his head, his entire body was formed from black energy. Meanwhile, this black energy was controlled by Desolate Moon, so Desolate Moon was naturally able to shatter it with ease. Xueqi wore an expression of puzzlement. After being struck by his spear, not only had this person not died, but even their battle prowess was completely unaffected. Whoosh! He immediately reacted, swinging upward with his spear and instantly knocking back Desolate Moon's cloak. Ha! His expression was as if he had seen a ghost. Ling Han also wore an identical expression. This was because Desolate Moon's appearance was far too terrifying. Was this really a human? Even though he had a nose and eyes, his face was covered in black tentacles. These tentacles weren't physical matter, but instead were formed with the black energy. Pang! Xueqi was sent flying, with the black energy immediately receding. All that remained was his lone head. Damn it, you actually exposed my true appearance. Desolate Moon shouted in incandescent rage. The black tentacles on his face billowed, appearing sinister yet repulsive. Xueqi's head hovered in the air. At his level, as long as his mind wasn't obliterated, he wouldn't be killed. Thus he could still activate some techniques. He was astounded as he gazed at Desolate Moon, and he exclaimed, "You're Huayun." Desolate Moon looked at Xueqi and said in a baleful voice, "Who knew that a junior would actually recognize me? Didn't you die in the realm battlefield long ago?" Xueqi asked, unable to conceal his astonishment. After all, anyone would feel torrential waves in their mind after seeing a person of the legends who was already rumored to be dead. Moreover, this person had now become so strange in appearance. Indeed, the Huayun of the past has already died in the realm battlefield. Now, I am Desolate Moon. Desolate Moon said. Killing intent flooded his face. This was an expression of disdain and disgust for everyone in the world. According to rumors, you only fell into the trap because you were set up by your fellow sect members, Xueqi murmured. His voice became softer and softer. Ling Han took over saying, "You didn't die, but you instead surrendered to hysteria." He finally understood why this black energy gave him a sense of familiarity. This was because they were far too similar to hysteria's tentacles. Huayun had fallen into hysteria's trap, yet hysteria hadn't killed him. Instead, hysteria had reformed Huayun and taken advantage of his fury with being betrayed to successfully take him in as a subordinate. Now, Huayun had entered the Celestial King graveyard with a mission. However, what was this mission? Ling Han looked at the giant eggs in the surroundings, each of which held a ninth heaven Celestial King who was enveloped in black energy. In other words, they were all being affected and controlled by hysteria. Once they left the Celestial King graveyard, just how much chaos and destruction would they cause? The strength of a dimension was in large part determined by the population that it housed. It wasn't limited to the number of top-notch elites. After massacring a dimension, these Celestial Kings would definitely weaken the overall strength of the Flaming Frost Realm by a significant amount. At that time, hysteria would naturally draw another step closer to engulfing this entire dimension. Gasp! Xueqi also realized this, with his face becoming as white as a sheet. This was even though only his head remained. Chapter 2654. 2654 True Hero. 2654 True Hero. Desolate Moon's eyes roved over Ling Han and Xueqi. Black chi was continuously rising from his face, and turning into snake-like forms, but at the same time, it seemed like tentacles as well, which was extremely disgusting. He revealed a grin. "I really cannot underestimate your intelligence, to have more or less reconstructed the truth with just a few clues." That's right. In the past, I was betrayed and besieged, and was ultimately swept away by Lord Hysteria's troops. Everyone thought that I was dead. But I simply did not die. It was Lord Hysteria that gave me a new life, and bestowed on me an even wider world. You think that joining Lore Hysteria is a humiliation, a mistake, right? You are wrong. Lord Hysteria is destined to unite all the dimensions and accommodate all worlds. When we are living in the world Lore Hysteria creates, we will have truly surpassed the heaven and earth and transcended heaven and earth. Ling Han scoffed, "You are obviously just a lackey, yet speak so boldly and confidently. I really don't know how you can be so shameless. Youth, you are now arrogant and overbearing, yet do not know it is the human heart that is the darkest." Desolate Moon humphed, flames of fury flickering in his eyes. "When these people are done, I will take them to that person who set me up, and have an accounting of old debts." "What are your plans for these celestial kings?" Ling Han asked grimly. There was no need for Desolate Moon to even answer. However, he thought for a while. Ling Han was just a bird trapped in a cage, so what need was there to be concerned about him?
Furthermore, Desolate Moon had accomplished such a mighty feat. If he did not share it with someone, he would indeed not feel satisfied. In any case, the other party had already deduced so much, so it would be fine for them to know some more information.
Desolate Moon smiled and said, "This so-called black chi is the spirit shards of Lord Hysteria. To Lord Hysteria, this is basically scraps, but for celestial kings like us, it can help us transform and take that most crucial step." A look of mania crossed his face. Just think, thousands upon thousands of pseudo-heavenly venerates appearing. Just what a grand sight would that be? Dimensional power was endless, and a heavenly venerate could be easily produced through the use of a dimension scroll. So why were there so few heavenly venerates? That was because heaven and earth was operating by its own rules. Heavenly venerable tier power was definitely not allowed to appear. But Hysteria was different.
It was a dimension, but at the same time, it itself was a being that had its own thoughts. There was absolutely no need for it to be concerned with any rules, because it could create as many heavenly venerates as it desired.
In fact, it was stretching out its hand in this direction.
In Hysteria's world, creating a heavenly venerate was only the matter of a single thought, but it was not so simple in other dimensions. One would need the help of others, and also need a very, very long time to attain the heavenly venerable tier. Even pseudo-heavenly venerates could not possibly break out of the Celestial King graveyard. Ling Han stated evenly, but these words were a foreshadowing of things to come.
True enough, Desolate Moon continued. This ancient tomb is the large tomb that the primordial ancient heavenly venerate laid out when he was alive, burying those subordinates that had followed him all the way. Afterwards, he advanced to the realm battlefield to participate in the resistance against Lord Hysteria, and he was naturally destroyed and turned into nothing. However, Desolate Moon paused for a while, and then continued, Lord Hysteria has obtained all the memories that belong to the primordial ancient heavenly venerate, and thus spent a great amount of effort and energy to forcefully create a passageway here that is connected directly to the outside of this realm. Hence, just put away all those worries of yours. Brat, don't have any unrealistic delusions. If you absorb the black chi voluntarily, you can suffer a little less. Otherwise, I would be very pleased to torture a prodigy. Ling Han had asked this question merely to find out if there was any way to leave here. As expected, since Desolate Moon had laid out such a grand conspiracy, he had already organized and planned out for all the minor details. Once these ninth heaven celestial kings broke through to become pseudo-heavenly venerates, Desolate Moon would take these people and leave. Whether they would be moving separately or attacking in unison, this force would be extremely terrifying. Most importantly, the realm battlefield was already under a great strain, so how many heavenly venerates could be dispatched from the front lines to deal with this big problem? First-tier heavenly venerates weren't enough at all. One would not be able to deal with even so many ninth heaven celestial kings, and once these people set foot in the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, probably even a second-tier heavenly venerate would not be enough, either. Sigh, seeing how your gaze wanders, you clearly are unwilling to accept my suggestion. Desolate Moon shook his head, and then said, Xueqi, go and take down this traitorous subject. Xueqi had a conflicted expression, but his eyes were very soon covered completely by the black light again. Boom! Countless streaks of black chi cascaded down from his severed neck, and reformed his torso. Die! Brandishing the divine spear, Xueqi charged towards Ling Han in attack. Desolate Moon sighed.
If Ling Han and Xueqi had come just a little earlier, he could have summoned some ninth heaven celestial kings to help him, but now was the very most crucial moment when these celestial kings were attempting to break through to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. If they were interrupted, there would be no way to establish communication with Hysteria, who was afar, again. They naturally could not possibly make another attempt to break through to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. However, even if Xueqi could not deal with Ling Han, if Desolate Moon himself was added into the equation, would it still not be enough? Ding 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 ding. Ling Han and Xueqi battled endlessly. The two of them fought from east to west, from south to north. The shock waves of their clashes reverberated, shattering the outer shell of the gigantic eggs inside the palace into smithereens. However, the inside of the eggs was completely undamaged. The celestial king inside could not be affected at all. Desolate Moon frowned, a strange feeling rising up in his heart. Just at this moment, Xueqi released a roar of fury. Boom! A golden light rose from the top of his head, instantly dispersing the black chi that had formed his body. No! Desolate Moon exclaimed in shock. This indicated that Xueqi had escaped his control. How was this possible? Once the black chi entered the body, one would be affected by the black chi. These were spirit shards of Hysteria, and even if it was just a tiny bit, along with being suppressed by this dimension, it was still extremely easy to influence a ninth heaven celestial king. Even a ninth heaven celestial king could not resolve this. What more a mere eighth heaven celestial king? But not only had Xueqi resolved it, he had accomplished it twice at that. Was this the willpower of a supreme monarch star? Go, I'll hold him back. You must bring the information back to the Martial Academy, or I will not spare you even if I die. Xueqi roared loudly, suddenly grabbing out at his forehead. A sphere of glowing white light appeared in his hand, and he tossed it over at Ling Han. Ling Han stretched out a hand and grabbed it. This sphere of light was the complete version of the 9 Transformations Divine Scroll. Ling Han couldn't help but feel rueful. Though Xueqi had always been on opposing sides with him, scrambling his brains to try and kill him, at the most crucial moment, he had done something that only a true hero would do. When they had previously been fighting, Xueqi had been communicating with him through divine sense, and said that he still had a sliver of himself that was conscious. He would deliberately take the fight with Ling Han to the far corner of the palace, and create a chance for Ling Han to escape. That was because once Desolate Moon's plan succeeded, tens of thousands of pseudo-heavenly venerates would enter into the flaming frost realm. The damage caused by that would be too terrifying. Faced with this conflict of principles, Xueqi suppressed his personal grudges, and was wise, generous, and heroic just this once. He knew that death was fated for him, so he also took out the 9 Transformations Divine Scroll, which he threw over to Ling Han. He was not Desolate Moon, so he had no way to make it so Ling Han would completely grasp this divine scroll in a single instant. He could only pass on his own memories to Ling Han so that the latter could study them slowly. Ling Han's expression was solemn. Xueqi, from this moment onwards, all our personal debts and grudges are resolved. Allow me to call you Brother Xiao. Haha, don't speak in such a sentimental manner. I told you to scram because no one can humiliate me, Xueqi. Xueqi turned his head. Golden energy manifested his body once again. His hand gripped onto the divine spear, emanating a heroism of someone that would only forge onwards, with no return. Even if there are millions standing in my way, I will still charge bravely forwards. Chapter 2655. 2655 Leaving. 2655 Leaving. Take them down. Desolate Moon pointed a finger at Ling Han and Xueqi, flustered and exasperated. He could no longer care for anything else. Pa pa pa. Instantly, 10 egg-like structures that could not be destroyed suddenly broke open on their own. 10 ninth heaven celestial kings stood up from their balled-up posture, each of them exuding frighteningly powerful auras. They had just been forging towards the height of the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, and though their progress had now been interrupted, and it was also possible that there would never be another chance for them to become a pseudo-heavenly venerate, the 10 of them were still peak-stage ninth heaven celestial kings. With their combined efforts, even a pseudo-heavenly venerate would probably shudder. However, the eyes of these 10 ninth heaven celestial kings were all completely black. The black and white of their eyes could not be differentiated at all, which was extremely eerie. They were walking corpses, Ling Han immediately thought. They had absorbed Hysteria's power, But it was also inevitable that they would become walking corpses without any consciousness. They would only obey commands. This was also why Desolate Moon was needed. He was not only needed as a middle person, he was also responsible for directing these pseudo-heavenly venerates to battle. Furthermore, why was Desolate Moon only a celestial king, and not a pseudo-heavenly venerate himself? It was probably for the same reason.
Xueqi laughed loudly.
Boom. He unleashed his golden energy endlessly.
Leave.
Xueqi, will stop them here. Not one of them will be able to take one step further. Ling Han took a deep breath and said, I hope we will meet again one day. Humph, don't speak as if we are friends, Xueqi retorted coldly. I only chose to let you break free since your state is better than mine. In truth, I would still be very pleased to cut off your head.
Ling Han nodded.
I will get revenge for you. He did not linger any longer. With so many ninth heaven celestial kings surrounding them, what time was there left for him to waste?
Xiao.
With a flash of his figure, Ling Han immediately raced towards the depths of this palace.
Take him down. Take him down.
Desolate Moon was flustered and exasperated. If all the celestial kings were awakened, he definitely would be able to stop Ling Han. But once the process to break through to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier was interrupted, there would never be a second chance. Scheming for hundreds of millions of years, only for just a few ninth heaven celestial kings to be sent out.
Wasn't that a joke?
Any second-tier heavenly venerate would be able to deal with them easily. Desolate Moon could only awaken a limited number of celestial kings. Otherwise, even he would not be able to bear the consequences. After all, he was presently only one of Hysteria's dogs. Ha ha ha, just see how I Xueqi will kill all in my way. The present Xueqi was even more heroic instead. He waved his divine spear. Boom. Golden light was also flashing on the divine spear, burning like flames. 10 great ninth heaven celestial kings rushed forwards, but they were all stopped by Xueqi. As golden energy surged out, he was extremely mighty and strong.
Ling Han sighed.
This was Xueqi's most dazzling battle. Even if he won, he would still die from overexhaustion. In fact, it was possible that he would suddenly die in the midst of battle. On the matter of principles, Xueqi had stood firmly, and was worthy of his name as one of the big shots of the world's paramount martial academy.
My respect goes to you.
Ling Han dismissed his other thoughts.
Pang.
His body art unleashed, and his speed was further boosted. The time that Xueqi had won through fighting to the death for Ling Han definitely could not be wasted.
Pang pang pang.
Behind Ling Han, golden light was clashing with black qi, accompanied by furious shouts from Desolate Moon. He raced off after Ling Han alone. It could not be helped. These ninth heaven celestial kings had been interrupted when they had been in the process of evolution, and were like infants. Though they could obey commands, their understanding of commands was not adequate yet. They were told to kill Ling Han and Xueqi. They saw that Xueqi was closer, so he became the target of their mad offensive. They ignored Ling Han completely. Hence, Desolate Moon could only set off in pursuit by himself. He had long since attained the peak stage of the ninth heaven, and was a supreme monarch star himself as well. His battle prowess was extremely terrifying, but in terms of pure speed, he might not be a match for Ling Han. Furthermore, he had started off later, and there was a long distance between himself and Ling Han still. Yet Ling Han did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. If Desolate Moon caught up to him, and he released another dozen ninth heaven celestial kings, then even if Ling Han burst out with the 5 elements lightning technique, he wouldn't necessarily be able to break out of their siege. He had to rush back to the Martial Academy, and report the information that he had found out here. Otherwise, what would Xueqi's sacrifice have been for? This level was the highest level of the palace. There was no 34th level. When Ling Han arrived at the end of the palace, he saw a black door of light appear ahead of him, with black qi twirling around it.
Was this the path to leave this place?
Ling Han paused slightly, looking hesitant. Boom! A terrifying aura spread out towards him. Desolate Moon had already caught up to him. Ling Han gritted his teeth. Whether it was or was not, he had to get a move on.
Shell.
With a leap, he entered into the doorway of light. Instantly, his figure was close to vanishing.
Desolate Moon arrived.
He, too, stopped, and showed a hint of hesitation in his expression. Though Lord Hysteria has opened a passageway, the exit's position has not yet been adjusted. Even if this brat can escape, it is still a question of where he would appear. Perhaps, by the time he returns to the Martial Academy, I will have already completed my mission here. Should I pursue or not? The evolution has begun, so there is actually no need for me to stay on guard here. Just in case, I had better pursue. He took a step, and entered the black doorway of light as well. Xiao. His figure vanished immediately as well. Boom. A powerful pulling sensation assailed Ling Han, bringing him great pain. This indeed was a spatial passageway that could allow him to leave the Celestial King graveyard, but that was designed for pseudo-heavenly venerates. For Ling Han to traverse this passage at present naturally caused him great suffering. Energy mercilessly sliced towards him. Even if he was channeling the indestructible Heaven Scroll, it was still useless. He would be wounded at the slightest movement, and if he did not channel it, his injuries would become even heavier. Even Ling Han could not continue enduring. With a flash, he entered into the celestial guest residence. Crack! The flow of energy swept past, and furious flames were immediately ignited on the surface of the celestial guest residence. Seals lit up, and then dimmed rapidly again. Thankfully, this was divine metal after all, and could resist the energy flow. It wasn't clear how much time had passed. Pang! The celestial guest residence was shot out, and streaked through the air before landing in a grassy meadow. Ling Han's figure appeared. His eyes swept over the surroundings. This was a plain, covered by green meadows. I have left, Ling Han immediately thought. This was definitely not the Celestial King graveyard. The vibe here was completely different. Ling Han leaped up, and immediately raced off. Who knew when Desolate Moon would come out? He'd take a look to see where he was, and how far he was now from the Martial Academy. His speed now was shocking, and with long-lasting stamina, it was more suitable for long-distance travel, making him capable of powerful bursts of speed. This was practically perfect. No wonder heavenly venerates are so strong. That is because what they are using is their own power, which is unlike celestial kings, who need to undergo a process of drawing on the power of regulations. Ling Han murmured as he kept running. At this time, he did not dare to absorb any void particle energy. If his body exploded, who knew how many years he would need to recover? I will enter into seclusion after I return, and boost my body art to the pinnacle of the seventh heaven before I come out again. Mountains and rivers were continuously left behind as Ling Han ran past them. After half a day of running, he finally discovered a large city, and directly exuded a great aura as he descended. The strongest in this city was only a fifth heaven celestial king tier. When they saw the 7 ribbons of iridescent light wrapped around Ling Han, they hurriedly rushed forward and addressed him as senior very respectfully. What city is this? And how far is this city from the world's paramount martial academy? Ling Han asked. The reason why he had directly revealed his proof of identity as a 7th heaven celestial king was so that he could save some time. Chapter 2656. 2656 Pursuit and Attack. 2656 Pursuit and Attack. That 5th heaven celestial king faltered slightly. He had not thought that Ling Han would actually ask this kind of question. Have you gone dumb, he thought, but of course he would not dare voice this out. He hurriedly answered obediently, this is Star Arrival City, and is really quite far away from the world's paramount martial academy. Get me a map. Ling Han waved him off. That 5th heaven celestial king hurriedly brought a map, and handed it over to Ling Han. Ling Han glanced at the map. This was indeed quite far. With the speed of a celestial king, he would still have to run for at least 80 to 100 years. He was faster than the typical celestial king, but 50 years was definitely still needed. He tossed the map back to the other. Pang! Exerting force, he burst through the air. Goodness, this lord's might is truly shocking. That 5th heaven celestial king couldn't help but lay a hand on his chest. He is clearly just at the 7th heaven, but why does he give me a feeling that is even more terrifying than a 9th heaven celestial king? He collapsed onto the ground. He had to drink some tea to soothe his nerves. However, before he had even finished a single cup of tea, Wang, another terrifying aura appeared. Then,
A figure completely wrapped up inside a black cloak appeared. Both build and gender were indistinguishable. That fifth heaven celestial king steeled himself and asked, "Who are you, sir?" The cloaked person naturally was Desolate Moon.
He ignored the other party and drew his right hand through the air.
Instantly, the scene of Ling Han conversing with the fifth heaven celestial king appeared once more. Regulations of time. Tracing back the roots of history. Because it had just happened, it could be traced. Otherwise, if too much time had passed, the past could not be touched. That fifth heaven celestial king couldn't help but wipe away the cold sweat on his forehead. This mysterious figure in front of him gave him an extremely frightening feeling. Desolate Moon withdrew his hand and glanced at that fifth heaven celestial king, his eyes blazing with killing intent. He had been set up and became hateful of everyone. Furthermore, while he still had intelligence after he was modified by hysteria, it was inevitable that his personality would be affected, causing him to become extremely bloodthirsty. Now that he had left the Celestial King graveyard, everyone here had become his prey. "It won't take much longer," Desolate Moon murmured. Boom! Endless black light suddenly surged out of his body, spreading out towards the whole city. "What are you?" That fifth heaven celestial king hurriedly tried to stop him, but the moment he came in contact with the black light, he immediately turned puppet-like, no longer capable of movement. In the matter of a few breaths, every living creature in the city was captured by the black light and turned into stone or wood. The city that had just been extremely lively moments ago had instantly become a dead city. Ha ha ha! Desolate Moon laughed loudly. Pang! He soared into the skies and continued his pursuit of Ling Han. Xiao xiao xiao! He absorbed all the black light back into his body, but all the living beings in the city also turned into dust at the same time. Lord Hysteria's plans definitely cannot be stopped because of you. Ling Han only knew that Desolate Moon would definitely pursue him, but he did not know that Desolate Moon would also create massive bloodshed in the process. Ling Han's stamina was abundant, and he did not stop at all, heading directly for the world's paramount martial academy. When one had reached the height that he had, who would stop him along the way? To say nothing of the fact that his battle prowess far surpassed his cultivation level, merely his status as a seventh heaven celestial king was enough to allow him to do anything he liked. But it should be known that Ling Han was also a person who had a halo that attracted trouble. He had not encountered any trouble throughout a few years on the journey, but on one particular day, he crashed headfirst into a battle. Ling Han was really innocent. He had been running too quickly, and to save himself time, he would definitely be forging ahead on a straight course. He had not thought that he would actually rush into a chaotic battle which involved quite a few parties. He did not consider stopping, but rather just forged forcefully ahead. In any case, with his tough physique, he could even take on the attack of a ninth heaven celestial king head-on after channeling the indestructible heaven scroll. Naturally, he would have no further reservations. He only needed to rush forwards in a single stroke. How dare you! How greedy! He had not thought that this charge would actually anger everyone, and they all attacked him. There were 7th heaven celestial kings and even 8th heaven celestial kings among these people. Otherwise, they would not have dared to so aggressively attack a 7th heaven celestial king. Ling Han ignored them completely, just forging onwards while he was being attacked. Yet it caused these people to attack him even more madly. Golden light flickered all over his body. Pang! He rushed out of the crowd while completely ignoring all attacks. Mist was wafting ahead of him, with a plume of purple-red clouds that were as dazzling as flames. So there was a celestial medicine here. Ling Han finally understood. These people were fighting over the celestial medicine, and the ownership of this celestial medicine had not yet been determined. They had just been fighting intensely, and had not expected that Ling Han would barge in and interfere, directly rushing into their midst. Don't even think about it. Everyone grabbed out at Ling Han. Ling Han laughed. Since he had seen it, there was no reason that he should miss out on it. This celestial king was indeed a celestial king tier great herb, and its age was shocking. It would give him considerable help as well. He moved, grabbing out at the celestial medicine. Pang pang pang. All the attacks flew towards him, and they were all absorbed by the indestructible heaven scroll. But when Ling Han laid down his palm, he gave a light exclamation of surprise because he actually pressed his hand down on nothing. The celestial medicine had grown legs and run. Ling Han withdrew his hand,
yet saw that the celestial medicine was still where it had been.
This was just a deception. The real celestial medicine was not here, or even on this plane at all. Its image was just a reflection, and it was not clear where it really was at all.
If Ling Han was given enough time, he would definitely be able to find the whereabouts of this celestial medicine, but he was now in a rush to get back to the martial academy, so he naturally could only give up the matter with great reluctance. He shook his head, and was about to leave when he suddenly frowned. "You have really been hard to find."
Desolate Moon's voice rang out. Black chi that filled the skies descended like railings that surrounded Ling Han. Because this cage was too massive, those people from before had also been closed in. "Who are you? Why have you imprisoned us? Don't bring trouble onto yourself." These people were all calling out, each of them furious. "So noisy." Desolate Moon humphed coldly, and the black chi suddenly stormed. Shwa, shwa, shwa. These people were all blasted by the black chi, and were immediately turned stone-like. Then, they shattered with a resounding boom, turning into dust. He was a supreme monarch star at peak stage 9th heaven. Ling Han turned around, and faced Desolate Moon directly. Though he did not want to clash with Desolate Moon right now, who asked him to have encountered trouble, and it was just this momentary delay that allowed Desolate Moon to catch up to him. "I still don't know your name yet," Desolate Moon stated calmly. "To have me personally deal with you, you are now worthy to have your name remembered by me." Ling Han shook his head. "I am not concerned about the praises of a lackey, but since you asked, then remember this. My name is Ling Han. It is unfortunate. You have lost your chance to take another step further. Otherwise, your future prospects would be boundless." Desolate Moon shook his head. By now, Ling Han was already trapped, and everything was over. Glib talk, but ultimately, it is only the delusional words of a maniac. Ling Han drew the divine demon sword. Shill. His figure flashed, yet he had no wish to clash forcefully with Desolate Moon at all. Instead, he waved his sword in a slash at the prison that the black chi had formed. What was the most important now was to return to the martial academy and report the circumstances. Everything else could be set aside for later. How sharp was the divine demon sword? It had surpassed the level of a celestial tool, and even if a 9th heaven celestial king was directly hit, his fate would only be being sliced in half. Thus, as the sword descended, the black chi was immediately severed. Ling Han charged out, shooting out madly at an extraordinary speed. Desolate Moon was surprised. While he immediately set forth to pursue, he turned his eyes on the divine demon sword. A look of dawning realization flashed across his face. That was devouring metal. Chapter 2657 2657 Arrival 2657 Arrival. Ling Han ran, and Desolate Moon gave chase. Both used their respective methods. Desolate Moon continued striking aggressively against Ling Han with spiritual attacks and various weapons formed with black chi. Ling Han wasn't afraid. He used Indestructible Heaven's Scroll to absorb oncoming attacks, and counterattacked with the 5 Elements Lightning technique. Suddenly being struck by the 5 Elements Lightning technique, Desolate Moon nearly suffered a big loss. However, he was after all a supreme monarch star at the peak of the 9th heaven, and his battle prowess surpassed Ling Han's by a huge extent. Moreover, he had also mastered the 9 Transformations Divine Scroll, this kind of heavenly venerate technique, and so defused the attacks at the cost of a small loss. After this blow, Desolate Moon naturally became a lot more cautious, and no longer regarded Ling Han as a 7th heaven celestial king, but rather as a being with the same cultivation level as him. However, with Desolate Moon being so cautious, though Ling Han was also unable to injure the former again, it imperceptibly made the former a much smaller threat to Ling Han. Xiao, the 2 celestial kings constantly traversed through space at ridiculously high speed. Along the way, of course many people had sighted them, but who would dare to intervene and ask them what was going on? The fact that Desolate Moon was capable enough to be dispatched by Hysteria to oversee the entire situation of course meant that he wasn't as simple as just a supreme monarch star at the peak of the 9th heaven. When he saw that he couldn't catch up to Ling Han for a long time, his eyes flashed, and he drew out 3 fine needles. These needles were given to him by Hysteria. Of course, they weren't precious tools refined by Hysteria himself,
but were obtained from the hands of the heavenly venerates who had died in the midst of the long period of war.
This was a heavenly venerate tool.
Of course, these 3 fine needles were severely damaged, far from having the power of the heavenly venerate, but they were still beyond the level of the 9th heaven, and were infinitely close in power to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier.
Most importantly, the power of these 3 fine needles could be fully unleashed in Desolate Moon's hands. Go! Desolate Moon grunted softly, and with the complete channeling of his power, the 3 fine needles were completely awakened. However, there was no flicker of seals, only the surging of endless power. Heavenly venerates did not cultivate regulations. Zuu, the 3 fine needles were fired simultaneously, and pursued Ling Han at an indescribable speed. Ling Han couldn't help but feel a powerful sense of alarm. With a sweep of his divine sense, he discovered the 3 fine needles. However, upon discovering them, they were already less than 300 meters away from him, and were still rapidly approaching him. 270 meters, 240 meters, 210 meters. This speed far exceeded Ling Han's. He activated the regulations of space to teleport himself to another location, but those fine needles automatically changed direction as if they had self-awareness. If the heavenly venerate tool could be dodged so easily, then it would be too shabby, wouldn't it? Ling Han used the regulations of time again in an attempt to delay the course of the 3 fine needles, but it was ineffective, as if nothing would work. Heavenly venerate tool. Ling Han thought to himself. Only the heavenly venerate tool would have such power. His only option was to take it head-on. Ling Han made a sharp turn, brandished the divine demon sword, and slashed at the 3 fine needles. Ding! Ding! With 2 crisp sounds, the divine demon sword slashed onto 2 fine needles one after another, slicing them in half with an invincible force, but the 3rd thin needle broke through the divine demon sword's resistance, and directly struck Ling Han's body. Ling Han was already channeling the indestructible heaven scroll, but this time, the indestructible heaven scroll had no effect. The fine needle ripped open his skin and entered his blood vessels. Desolate Moon couldn't help but sigh. With the passage of time, even the precious tool refined by the heavenly venerate was laid to waste. Otherwise, though the fine needles were made of neither divine metal nor devouring metal, they shouldn't be cut in just one slash. Still, 1 fine needle had entered Ling Han's body, and that was enough to allow the power of pseudo-heavenly venerable tier to be unleashed. Even someone at the peak of the 9th heaven celestial king would meet his end. Ling Han retracted his sword, turned around, and continued to run. He knew something was wrong, but could only keep running while thinking of a solution. It was hurting. He felt as if the blood in his body was burning. The pain was unbearable. This wasn't an illusion. Could clearly see the heat rising from his skin, and moisture was depleting rapidly. This was a great deadly weapon. It was burning him alive, and turning him into a dried corpse. Ling Han humphed, and extracted a large volume of water element from heaven and earth using his left hand before inserting it into his body to ease the crisis within. He channeled the indestructible heaven scroll again, trying to force the fine needle out of his body. But the fine needle moved in his body according to his blood flow, astonishingly as fast as before. It was impossible to capture it at all. It's futile. That's a weapon that the 1000 transformation heavenly venerate had personally refined in the past. Although he had just forged it casually, and had not used any precious materials, it is still not something that you, a puny 7th heaven celestial king, can fight against, Desolate Moon said from behind. Naturally, Ling Han ignored him. He had experienced countless dangers in his life, so how could he give up just because of a few words from his opponent? However, Desolate Moon was right about one thing. Ling Han really had no way to force the fine needle out of his body. Then, Ling Han's expression suddenly hardened, and slashed at his finger with his sword. Pa! Blood splashed as a finger was immediately chopped off, but the deadly boiling within his body also disappeared. As the thin needle just happened to circulate up to his finger, it was cut off along with his finger. It was a prompt and resolute decision, not because Ling Han didn't care about this hand, but because he cherished his life more. Ling Han didn't even bat an eyelid. Previously, his body had undergone repeated explosions, so what was the big deal with just one finger being cut off now? Desolate Moon was shocked. He didn't expect that Ling Han was not only ruthless to himself, but also had such amazing insight that he could eradicate a great danger at minimal cost. His eyes flashed with killing intent. If Ling Han was allowed to escape, he would surely become a peerless elite in the future, and be one of the main forces of resistance against hysteria. Ling Han could not be left alive. Desolate Moon went all out to give chase, wanting to get rid of this hidden danger.
Ling Han was neither angry nor alarmed, his objective being extremely clear. Even if he had an opportunity to kill Desolate Moon, he would not do so, because the most important thing right now was to prevent those ninth heaven celestial kings in the ancient tomb from becoming pseudo-heavenly venerates.
Chasing, fleeing, chasing, fleeing. 10, 20, 30 years. Time flew past. Almost 50 years later, the great mountain where the world's paramount martial academy was located came into Ling Han's sight. As a former disciple of the martial academy, how could Desolate Moon not know that this was the world's paramount martial academy? He humphed angrily, but had to stop his pursuit, turned around and left. If the heavenly venerates of the martial academy were drawn out, then Desolate Moon would definitely be killed instantly.
Having sold himself to serve hysteria, he would be killed on the spot even if he was the son of a 7th-tier heavenly venerate.
Damn. Damn. Desolate Moon humphed. I can only activate the backup plan now. I absolutely must not let a mere pawn ruin the plans of Lord Hysteria. Ling Han quickened his pace, and then entered into the area under the jurisdiction of the world's paramount martial academy. There weren't any guards here. The 9 Deaths formation would keep all unqualified people out, so why bother guarding?
He quickly passed through the great formation, and shouted towards the sky, his loud voice like rolling thunder.
What the heck's with all that shouting? Many celestial kings rushed out immediately, and roared at Ling Han. They were all prodigies from countless realms, each of them with invincible aptitude. Ling Han pressed on without hesitation, and said loudly, "Is the Black Donkey Senior here?" A black shadow flashed, and then a black donkey suddenly appeared, with shock written all over its face. "How did you get out here? Who let you out?" "Senior, something big has happened," Ling Han said with utmost seriousness. Chapter 2658. 2658. Something big has happened. 2658. Something big has happened. What's the big deal? The black donkey nonchalantly asked.
"Yo, little Han, how come you are back?"
The large black dog also ran out. When he saw Ling Han, he couldn't help but gaze at him in round-eyed wonder. This was absolutely unimaginable. A person who had entered the Celestial King graveyard could actually break out on his own. "Let's find a secluded place to talk," Ling Han said. The black donkey stood up, and suddenly the man, dog and donkey disappeared with a movement of the latter's hooves. Those prodigies who had broken out were all confused indeed. What was the problem with this person? Who is this person? I don't recognize him. His name is Ling Han, a young man suddenly spoke up, a smile on his face. Yen Xianlu. At that time, there had been no news since Ling Han battled Heavenborn. Most people said that he was already dead. Although Yen Xianlu did not believe that Ling Han would die so easily, the latter had not appeared for so many years. This caused Yen Xianlu to feel doubts as well. But just now, he finally saw Ling Han. "Who is this Ling Han?" someone asked.
"Now that's a long story."
Yen Xianlu laughed. Ling Han, the black donkey, and the large black dog appeared on top of a mountain. The black donkey asked impatiently, "Brat, did the sky collapse, or has the ground submerged?" Ling Han recounted what had happened in the ancient tomb, and the black donkey's face had a shocked expression. "Oh my goodness, this is really a big deal." The black donkey was alarmed. "I can't handle this matter. I will look for Zhou Heng immediately to let him handle this. Otherwise, even if 1 or 2 manage to break out, it will cause huge trouble." Moreover, originally the establishment of the Celestial King graveyard was in consideration of the various heavenly venerates.
Now if all the celestial kings in there are to be killed, there will definitely be opposition coming from many heavenly veneratus. It would be difficult to settle this matter satisfactorily.
Damn, how could that bastard Hysteria pull off such a dirty trick? The black donkey jumped around, looking extremely irritated. Killing a group of 9th Heaven Celestial Kings wouldn't be difficult. The difficulty was that many 9th Heaven Celestial Kings came from powerful backgrounds. Furthermore, Now was the time to stand united in the fight against hysteria. If this event caused discord among the people, then it would affect the entire situation. Never mind, I will go deliver the news first. The black donkey tore a rip into space, and immediately left. Ling Han and the large black dog looked at each other. Although they hadn't seen each other for almost 100 million years, both hadn't changed at all. Damned dog, how is the divine metal coming along? Ling Han asked. They still had another task, which was to suppress Heavenborn and substitute his soul with that of the karmic life Heavenly Venerable. However, the physique of Heavenborn was comparable to divine metal. In order to be able to strike him, the divine demon sword had to be upgraded to the level of a Heavenly Venerate tool before it could be a threat to Heavenborn. Che, do you think the divine metal can just be found anywhere? The large black dog said irritably, but still took out 7 pieces of divine metal. Ling Han was astounded. Where did you swindle all that from? Having gotten 7 pieces of divine metal in just 100 million years, even if it was done in the Flaming Frost realm, wasn't an easy feat. Shoo shoo shoo. Can't you talk properly? The large black dog waved a paw. Quickly, let's see if you can upgrade the divine demon sword with these. Ling Han nodded. He took out the divine demon sword, and it began to devour the divine metal. Divine metal was tough and durable. Any ninth heaven celestial king could forge and cut it, but it could never be destroyed. However, when faced with devouring metal, the divine metal would become extremely fragile, with all its essence being quickly extracted and turning to dust. Ling Han waved the divine demon sword, and carefully examined it before saying, "It's still lacking. I gather it still needs about 3, 5 or 10 pieces of divine metal." Fuck. The large black dog bared his teeth. Why do you still need so much? Do you want me to die? Ling Han just smiled and stared intently at the large black dog. All right. I'll just go and get some more, okay? The large black dog turned and left. Actually, he was even more looking forward to the resurrection of the karmic life Heavenly Venerable than Ling Han himself. After all, Ling Han had never met the karmic life Heavenly Venerable, but the large black dog had been cultivating by the side of the karmic life Heavenly Venerable, and their relationship ran extremely deep. Ling Han returned to his quarters. After so many years, he had accumulated countless cultivation resources. The Empress and Bewitching Maiden Row also came out of Celestial Guest Residence, and handed over all their cultivation resources to Ling Han for him to deal with them accordingly. Ling Han planned to concoct alchemical pills. Relying solely on the amount supplied by the Martial Academy, the cultivation resources which he could obtain were still limited. After all, he wanted to upgrade the indestructible Celestial King physique, which required an inordinate amount of resources. If he were to depend on the supply from the Martial Academy, then it might take him 1 epoch before he could attain this goal. He was recuperating from his injuries while cultivating and concocting the pills at the same time. As for the events of Ancient Tomb, he no longer needed to worry about it. If even Zhou Hang couldn't handle this matter, then what could Ling Han, a 7th heaven celestial king, do about it? Several years later, his severed finger regenerated without the slightest lingering aftereffect. And a few years later, there was news that the Celestial King graveyard had been destroyed, and only a few people managed to come out alive. This was indeed very shocking. It attracted the attention of countless people, and infuriated many major forces. It was actually due to the ascending dragon pill that many celestial kings, such as the Azure Ghost Celestial King, had been sent into the Celestial King graveyard. However, now that these people had died here, naturally there wouldn't be any more ascending dragon pills. While the major forces were infuriated by this news, they were also investigating the truth of the matter. When Ling Han got to know about it, he was sure that certain forces would put the blame on him, as it was his report which led to the destruction of the Celestial King graveyard. Of course, this had nothing to do with Ling Han. If it weren't for him bringing back news on the emergence of so many pseudo-heavenly venerates, there would be no telling of the extent of damage that would have resulted. This was actually a great merit. However, those major forces would not think like this, for they only knew that their own interest had been jeopardized, and the direct cause of it was Ling Han. If they want to blame me, so be it. If I attain great accomplishment in my cultivation level, whom shall I fear? Whoever dares to come and cause trouble, I'll kill them immediately. They dare to do such a deranged thing. Each of them deserve to be killed. Ling Han swiftly put this matter aside,
and concentrated on his cultivation and concocting alchemical pills. It took him 1,000 years to absorb a single void particle, which he subsequently used to refine his body in order to achieve advancement in his body art, while his physical body had to undergo a complete destruction first. This way of improving one's strength was extremely arduous but incomparably effective. Under such rigorous tempering, he actually succeeded in the complete cultivation of the 7th level of indestructible celestial king physique. Ling Han made persistent efforts, and his strength steadily improved. On the other hand, he also concocted plenty of alchemical pills, and planned to find an opportunity to trade them for some natural treasures. 30,000 years later, he came out of seclusion. As soon as he came out, the Rain Emperor, Yan Xianlu, and Yi came over one after another, and talked to him about the old times. Thinking back, they had not seen each other for almost 100 million years. The Rain Emperor's cultivation speed was still as fast as before, with him having already reached the height of the 5th heaven, while Yan Xianlu and Yi were slightly worse off, having only reached the level of 3rd heaven. This couldn't be compared to Ling Han, but no matter which realm he was placed in, his speed was considered to be amazing. Ling Han, my master has a message for you, so quickly come out on your knees and listen to it. A voice suddenly rang out. Who is so arrogant? Yan Xianlu immediately stood up. Yi's eyes flashed and he said, that seems to be Heavenborn's lackey Zhu Hongxian. Heavenborn. Ling Han's and the Rain Emperor's eyes lit up, revealing a raging fighting spirit. I'm going to send him away. Yi stood up as well and walked towards the door. Heavenborn just sent a mere subordinate, so they couldn't let Ling Han face him, or wouldn't that be demeaning him? Chapter 2659. 2659 Battle Invitation from Heavenborn. 2659 Battle Invitation from Heavenborn. Ling Han didn't move, but a very loud commotion was heard from outside only after a short while. Clearly, Yi and Zhu Hongxian had already come to blows. This battle did not last very long. Very soon, calm resumed, and then Yi came striding back in. Yan Xianlu couldn't help but ask, what does Heavenborn want? Yi took a deep breath and answered. He has issued a challenge of battle to Ling Han, to be held at the Thousand Winds Forest 3 days later. A challenge from Heavenborn. Ling Han thought for a moment, and then asked, what cultivation level is Heavenborn at now? His progress is astonishing. He is already in the 7th heaven, the Rain Emperor declared. Not even 100 million years had passed, and he had advanced through 2 consecutive cultivation levels. This speed was shocking. It should be known that the higher the cultivation level, the slower it would be to advance to the next level. Ling Han cracked a smile. 7th heaven? All right. Agree on my behalf. 3 days later, we will battle at the Thousand Winds Forest. The Rain Emperor's, Yan Xianlu's, and Yi's expression changed drastically, and they began to dissuade him. Ling Han, don't be rash. Heavenborn's battle prowess far surpasses his cultivation level, and the extent of his freakishness is not inferior to yours. He has once challenged a 9th heaven elite, and he won the battle. Furthermore, this person's physique is as tough as divine metal. That is the most terrifying aspect. No matter how strong a celestial king is, they would only be suppressed by him, and there is no way to kill him. By birth, he is already invincible, and is too difficult to deal with. Ling Han merely smiled slightly, and then released his reins on his cultivation level. Instantly, 7 ribbons of iridescent light wrapped around him. Boom! A shocking aura spread out, and the Rain Emperor and the others all paled in shock. Fourth brother, you actually have broken through to the 7th heaven as well. After a moment of surprise, the Rain Emperor's expression was filled with joy. Ling Han nodded. Though he had already caught up to Heavenborn in terms of cultivation level, there was not much delight in his expression. That was because as he had planned it, he had wanted to break through to the 9th heaven within 100 million years, yet now he was a whole 2 cultivation levels away from his goal. This was really far too divergent from his original estimations. In a battle at the same cultivation level, Fourth Brother's battle prowess would definitely not lose to Heavenborn's, the Rain Emperor exclaimed, nodding his head. However, the greatest strength of Heavenborn is not his battle prowess, but rather his physique, which is similar to divine metal, which is indestructible. Yan Xianlu was still worried. Ling Han smiled. It's fine.
I have returned this time to test out the strength of this guy. Even if he had not issued me a challenge, I would have still battled him. Then, I'll go and give him your answer. He stepped out again. Very quickly, a shocking great piece of news spread out. Heavenborn had issued a challenge of battle to Ling Han, which would be held 3 days later at the Thousand Winds Forest. Instantly, the whole martial academy was in an uproar. Who was Ling Han? Probably 9 out every 10 people did not know, but there was practically no one who did not know who Heavenborn was. It wasn't clear how many powerful disciples he had challenged on his path to the 7th heaven. The majority of his battles had ended with a complete victory, and even his occasional non-victories would be ending with a tie. That was because no one could do anything against his physique. His physique was extremely tough, as if his body was made out of divine metal. Only a 9th heaven celestial king could refine divine metal, but he would still be unable to destroy divine metal, so how could Heavenborn be truly injured? This was a monster. And now this monster was actually challenging a person whose name had never been heard before. How could they accept this? Could it be that this Ling Han is a very low-profile person, but in truth is a great emperor at the peak stage of the 9th heaven? That's right, that's right. If it was not for that, how could he be worthy of being challenged by Heavenborn? The latter has always only challenged those at a higher cultivation level than himself. In a battle of equal cultivation levels, even those as strong as Xueqi, Miao Hua, and the others would not be a match for him. Wrong, you're all wrong. This Ling Han is only in the 7th heaven. What? Heavenborn is actually challenging a celestial king of the same cultivation level? It is said that Ling Han and Heavenborn come from the same dimension, and have been old rivals since long ago. Though Heavenborn got the upper hand, he was unable to kill Ling Han. Thus, this is their battle for the nth time. I have also heard that the root of their grudge is a woman. Tui, then why have I heard that it was Heavenborn that had courted Ling Han, but Ling Han was not homosexual? As a result, Heavenborn's love turned to hatred, and they had completely turned against one another? You're all wrong. Do you guys remember the Zhang San and Li Si that left their names on the Eternal Stone? Of course I remember. Those two are definitely powerful people. Ling Han is Zhang San, he is Li Si as well. Gasp. Then the battle between the two of them would be a spectacle to watch. Ling Han is definitely not weak. So what? Don't forget about Heavenborn's physique. His physique is comparable to divine metal, and there is no need for him to be afraid of any celestial king. True, it should still be Heavenborn who has better chances of winning. The disciples were all discussing spiritedly, and became extremely gossipy all of a sudden. Furthermore, a great many forces were also mobilized by the news. To be worthy of a challenge from Heavenborn, Ling Han had to be an extraordinary person as well. They wanted to establish relations with Ling Han. The whole academy was filled with anticipation, and the battle of titans that would take place 3 days later would be extremely exciting. Yet Ling Han did not feel the slightest hint of nervousness before the battle. He was just spending time calmly with the women, as if the one that would be going into battle 3 days later was not him. Husband, do you have confidence? Lu Yutong and the other women asked. Ling Han smiled softly. Heavenborn, in terms of pure defense, has already attained the pinnacle of the celestial king tier, and what can truly destroy divine metal is only the power of the heavenly venerable tier. Then what can be done? Everyone was anxious, especially bewitching Maiden Ro. She had personally witnessed how Heavenborn had unleashed his might. At the time, even the combined efforts of Ling Han, the Rain Emperor, Ji Wuming, Hua Ferong, and company was not a match for him alone. It's fine. Your husband is not someone to be trifled with either, Ling Han said smilingly. In these few years, he had also perfected his grasp of the 9 transformations divine scroll. He alone possessed 3 heavenly venerate techniques. Was that still not enough to qualify him to battle Heavenborn? When the women saw how confident Ling Han was, they could only place their trust in this husband of theirs. 3 days' time passed in the blink of an eye. Because both parties involved in this battle were very well known, and with some people deliberately adding fuel to the fire, not only did all the disciples of the present term come to watch when the time for the battle arrived, but some incredibly outstanding characters from the last few terms had come as well. Amu, Can Yu, Du Shi. These were all people who had left their names on the Eternal Stone.
They had long since attained the peak stage of the ninth heaven, but the step into the heavenly venerable tier was really too hard to take. Even now, they were still struggling earnestly at this cultivation level. Even the three of them were here, which was clear proof of how much attention this battle had garnered. The three big-shot disciples stood in midair, their hands crossed behind their backs. They were too far to approach, with 9 ribbons of iridescent light wrapped around them. Yet it seemed like these 9 ribbons were close to fusing into one, and could not be grasped. This showed that they were about to advance to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. Once they took that step, they would have leapt out of the range of celestial kings. Heavenborn had long since arrived. As if he was a central figure that everyone revolved around, there was a crowd of people surrounding him. Meanwhile, he himself stood calmly, his arms crossed behind his back and 7 ribbons of iridescent light wrapped around him. His abilities displayed to the full extent. Just when it looked like time was passing continuously, but there was no sign of Ling Han at all, everyone began to get anxious. Where's Ling Han? It can't be that he's afraid to battle, right? If he agreed to the battle, yet cowered right before the battle, what face would he have left to stay any longer in the martial academy? His infamy would really last for millennia then. Among the spectators, it was Xueqi who felt the gloomiest. He had been harshly beaten up by Ling Han, and had initially planned to exact his revenge, but his power in the martial academy was limited. Furthermore, his ancestor was battling in the realm battlefield at present, and there was absolutely no way that he would return, so Xueqi could only bottle up this anger. Afterwards, Ling Han went off quietly to the Celestial King graveyard, and Xueqi had no further possibility of revenge. Finally, he waited until an opportunity like this had come. He was extremely eager to see Heavenborn beat Ling Han up, but why hadn't Ling Han come? Right at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in the distance. It was none other than Ling Han. Chapter 2660. 2660 Selling alchemical pills. 2660 Selling alchemical pills. Ling Han was here. Instantly, everyone became excited. The other main character had finally arrived, and the battle was about to begin at any moment. Ling Han naturally had not come alone. He was accompanied by the Rain Emperor, Yan Xianlu, and the others, including the Empress, Bewitching Maiden Ro, and the other women. His formation was not inferior to Heavenborn's. Brother Ji. Celestial Maiden Hua. As they walked, Ling Han smilingly greeted Ji Wuming, Hua Ferong, and the others. This battle had also attracted the attention of all the prodigies of the celestial realm, because both parties involved in this battle had come from their realm. The celestial realm was a super low-level dimension, yet 2 supreme prodigies had now appeared consecutively from their ranks. All the cultivators from the celestial realm felt similarly proud. When they spoke of Heavenborn and Ling Han, they would also feel proud. Hui was also nearby. He had also been born in the celestial realm, and was extremely strong. However, his physique was not as strong as Heavenborn's, and he had been restrained strongly by Heavenborn. Hui naturally was more inclined to Ling Han winning this battle, but he was also aware that the chances of this were too narrow. Out of anyone who knew Heavenborn's strength, who would believe that Ling Han could win? Ling Han, you are finally here, Heavenborn stated calmly. Though his voice was not loud, it was filled with authority and dominance. This was a display of his confidence. As I see it, you can just barely be considered a prodigy. Submit to me, and follow my lead from today onwards. Ling Han ignored him, and continued walking forwards. Heavenborn, are you still dreaming? He asked. Nothing but a puny third heaven celestial king, and you dare speak to Lord Heavenborn in this manner? Heavenborn naturally couldn't deign to argue with but his lackeys would definitely jump out to defend their master. Heavenborn merely looked coldly at Ling Han, and said, since you are unwilling to accept my kindness, then just wait for me to beat you till you burst. Since Heavenborn came to being, it was only Ling Han who had successfully tricked him, causing his plans to fall apart, and Heavenborn had not been able to obtain the blood essence of all the prodigies. Otherwise, he could be even stronger than he was now. Thus, the person he hated the most was naturally Ling Han as well, or how could Heavenborn have possibly taken the initiative to challenge the other party? Ling Han still ignored his opponent. He walked to where the spectators were, and then suddenly broke into a smile.
He took out several pill bottles and called out loudly, "Come, come, come. If you are passing by, better not miss out on this opportunity. I have flawless pill, which can mend the instability and foundations on the path of cultivation, and there is also splitting clouds pill, which can increase the chance to break through to the next cultivation level by a sliver." Ling Han suddenly turned into a businessman and began to peddle his products right there and then. No one expected that Ling Han would actually do this. But after a moment of surprise, a great many people were moved because the alchemical pills that Ling Han was selling were really what they yearned for. "I want a bottle. I want 10. Give me one too." Everyone gathered around Ling Han. No one knew exactly how many such great celestial king-tier alchemical pills Ling Han possessed. Hence, all of them scrambled over one another in their hurry, fearing that Ling Han's stock would be emptied out, and they would be left with nothing. Seeing this scene, Lu Yutong and the other women all bore strange expressions. Li Sikan asked weakly, "Could it be that this is the true reason that husband agreed to the challenge? Make use of Heavenborn's influence, attracting everyone here, then take the chance to sell his alchemical pills. Probably the only person who could do this is husband." It can be imagined that Heavenborn would definitely explode in fury. Indeed, Heavenborn was already extremely furious. Who was he?
Even the many instructors in the martial academy were very polite to him, because it was a sure bet that he would become a heavenly venerate in the future with his aptitude.
Among the many disciples, Heavenborn was also one of the strongest. On the Eternal Stone, he had beaten AMU and other supreme freaks, and could be considered the top in the whole epic. Yet, now that he had voluntarily spoken, not only had Ling Han ignored him, he had actually begun to peddle alchemical pills. "Are you a peddler?" Not only did this cause Ling Han's image to collapse, it also dragged down Heavenborn's authority as well. "See, you are actually challenging this kind of person, which shows that your standards aren't all that high, either." Hee. In midair, MU couldn't help but laugh out loud. "This junior brother is really quite interesting," Du Shi said, smiling as well. "Hopefully, he is not just versed in showing off and nothing else," Kenyu stated coldly. He hated people who were flashy but without any substance inside. Below them, Heavenborn finally could no longer bear it, and called out loudly, "Ling Han, are you fighting or not?" Of course. Ling Han continued to do business. He naturally would not be taking starstones, but would be trading for valuable ingredients. There were various prodigies gathered in the martial academy, but Grandmaster alchemists were extremely rare. His pill concoction success rate was shockingly high, so he could make an astounding amount of profit. "Then what are you doing now?" Heavenborn demanded, forcing down his fury. Ling Han was surprised. "Our agreement was to battle today, but there was no mention of exact time, right? What are you in such a rush for? The day hasn't ended yet, right?" Heavenborn was instantly struck speechless. Did this fucking kind of logic exist? "We agreed to battle today, and you are already here, yet are still wasting time here. Aren't you deliberately joking with me? Ling Han, if you're afraid, kneel down immediately and beg for mercy." "That's right, just beg for mercy." Heavenborn subordinates all called out, speaking on behalf of their master because there were some words that would be inappropriate for one of Heavenborn's status to say. Yen Xianlu, and the others also stepped out to counter with their own retorts. They naturally were helping Ling Han. Neither of the main characters had begun the battle, but their subordinates were already arguing so intensely that their faces and ears were flushed, looking greatly infuriated. Ling Han was doing very good business. Everyone here was a prodigy from their respective dimension. Even if not all of them came from powerful backgrounds, there were indeed such wealthy people. Some were even the descendants of heavenly venerates, so the resources they possessed were shockingly great in volume. In less than an hour, Ling Han sold all of the alchemical pills he possessed. He subtly calculated the resources that he had traded them for. If these too were refined into alchemical pills, the amount would be 9 times what he had originally had. He had made almost 10 times the profit. Ling Han was very satisfied. He stepped out of the masses, but there were still a great many people that wanted to buy alchemical pills for him. They were still gathered around him, unwilling to let him leave. "Don't worry, everyone. 10,000 years later, I will be selling alchemical pills again, So please don't miss out on the next opportunity, Ling Han said. Only then were the masses satisfied. For celestial kings, 10,000 years was naturally no big deal. Ling Han walked forwards and declared, Heavenborn, make your move. Heavenborn was already livid with fury. How long had he been waiting? Just how long had he been waiting? Ling Han, I will let you know what the consequences are for mocking me. He spat out word by word, his eyes extremely fierce. Ling Han chuckled and waved a hand. Don't spout so much nonsense. Stop wasting time, and make your move. Humph. Heavenborn finally could no longer hold himself back. Pang. He suddenly shot into the skies, and with a wave of his arms, they instantly transformed into 2 golden spears. Come. Ling Han pushed down on his feet. Pang. He too shot into the skies and looked across at Heavenborn. He drew the divine demon sword and raised it so it was level with his chest, pointing it straight at Heavenborn, his eyes exuding coldness. Die. Heavenborn struck. Shill. His figure shot forwards, blasting towards Ling Han. Ding. Spear and sword clashed, instantly causing the surrounding space to collapse, which spread in all directions. But neither of the two took one step backwards. There was less than a foot's distance between their faces, and both their expressions were blazing with fighting spirit. Pang pang pang. Explosions rang out in the space around them, and even regulations were shattered into bits, unable to withstand a single blow under the assault of the 2 great elites. Humph, it's been a long time since we've last met, and your strength has indeed increased considerably. Heavenborn waved his arms, and sent Ling Han sliding backwards. Your strength is as I have expected it to be, though not all that impressive, Ling Han retorted calmly. Heavenborn couldn't help but grit his teeth. Why did this guy have such a venomous tongue? Chapter 2661. 2661 Difference. 2661 Difference. Speaking cheekily in front of me does not have the slightest benefit for you. Heavenborn threatened menacingly. Oh, so what about it? Ling Han retorted calmly. You will find that out. Heavenborn charged towards Ling Han once more. Again, he was sweeping out with a spear, using it like a staff. Clang. Ling Han struck out his sword to parry. The divine demon sword blocked the golden spear, but strangely, this golden spear suddenly became whip-like, flexible and soft. The body of the spear twirled around, shooting rapidly towards Ling Han's face again. This was not a celestial tool at all, but rather Heavenborn's own arm, and could be changed as he willed. Interesting, Ling Han said, his left hand balling into a fist, which he shot out in a punch. Pang! Frightening power reverberated, and Heavenborn was instantly sent backwards. In their first clash, both of them used their respective methods, and it was hard to determine whose battle prowess was stronger. Shatter and destroy! Heavenborn shouted loudly, his arms turning into paddles that began to rapidly spin. This caused great destruction as the regulations in the surroundings were already very chaotic in the first place. With this spinning action from him, they instantly shattered completely, and could no longer be extracted. Heavenborn laughed loudly, his arms once again turning into swords that pierced towards Ling Han. Without regulations, all celestial kings were trash. His tactic was simple and rough, but it was extremely effective. The prodigies beneath them were all watching, and they frowned. This was equivalent to forcefully removing the power of celestial kings, and making it a physical battle. How many people would be able to withstand this? This tactic was extremely simple, but there was no way to counter it. That's unless one's cultivation level is superior to Heavenborn's, he could then forcefully extract regulations from farther away, or lock regulations within his body in advance, but in this manner, he can only rapidly and suddenly suppress Heavenborn. Otherwise, as time passes, he would similarly be in a dilemma when regulations are fully expended. The problem here is that Heavenborn's physique is comparable to divine metal. Who would be able to suppress him in a short period of time? There is no way to deal with this. If Heavenborn reached the 9th heaven, then he could be considered invincible among celestial kings. Everyone shook their head. To penetrate through Heavenborn's physique's defenses, one would have to surpass the 9th heaven, and this was something that only a pseudo-heavenly venerate could do. How could Ling Han solve this problem? There was no solution. Yet Ling Han forged onwards bravely. Slicing out with his sword, boom, he also tore a rip in space, slashing regulations. This was incredibly terrifying. Everyone was stunned. This guy did not draw on regulations, so why was it that he could still unleash such frightening battle prowess? Boom. The two fighters exchanged blows again, but it was still hard to determine who was stronger. The two of them, both have powerful body arts, someone uttered very ruefully. Heavenborn was especially surprised. Why was his body art so powerful?
That was because he was the manifestation of the willpower of the heaven and earth, so it was natural that he had long since come into contact with the fundamental power of the Genesis world. However, due to the limits of his cultivation level, he could not draw on this power at all, but he could use the fundamental power to temper himself.
However, how did Ling Han manage to do it? What are you? You are only a manifestation of heaven and earth that possesses some unique abilities. If not for that, you would be mere trash. Ling Han said disdainfully. Heavenborn's power had not been gained through hard work, but rather this was the way he had been born. Heavenborn was just like a spoiled young master who possessed boundless wealth from the very moment he was born. Without any need to work, he would be tens of thousands of times stronger than the average person. Today, I will let you know what the difference is between what you are born with and what you have gained through hard work. Ling Han shouted furiously. His left hand balled into a fist, delivering a series of punches. Pang pang pang. Every single punch was extremely heavy, without the slightest sliver of regulations of the Great Tao, yet was even more terrifying than being repressed by Great Tao. In these tens of thousands of years, Ling Han had not stopped cultivation. He continued to use void particle energy to temper his body, and his body art had been steadily improving. Even if he had not reached the peak stage of the seventh heaven, he was still extremely powerful. You actually dare to show off in front of me? Heavenborn was unwilling to show weakness.
One of his hands took the form of a sword, while the other balled into a fist as he clashed with Ling Han. This was clearly a deliberate action of his, used as evidence of his superior strength.
I was born powerful, and this is my advantage.
Furthermore, how could the effort that I have put in afterwards be something that you can imagine?
Heavenborn attacked with both sword and fist, his power definitely not the slightest bit weaker than Ling Han's. Humph, your physique is as strong as divine metal, and this is your advantage, but at the same time, it is also your strongest weakness.
You have never felt the pressure of possible death, so how could you possibly ever comprehend the true meaning of cultivation?
Ling Han sneered. Are you looking down on my battle prowess? Heavenborn roared out furiously. Just like trash. Ling Han laughed loudly, attacking aggressively. Pang pang pang. Sword and fist attacked Heavenborn repeatedly, as if this was proof of his conclusion. Heavenborn's expression instantly turned dark. Though his physique was tough, and this kind of attack landing on him was completely nothing to be bothered about, just being hit by Ling Han like this was equivalent to saying that Heavenborn was indeed inferior to the other party in terms of battle prowess. In a battle at the same tier, his battle prowess was actually outmatched. As expected, it is Ling Han who is slightly stronger. In the skies, AMU and the other big shots began their commentary.
Martial intent that is formed under the pressure of imminent death is definitely not something that can be compared with strength that one is naturally born with.
Du Shi nodded as well. Ling Han has already created his own path.
This is true strength, and the doors to the heavenly venerable tier are already halfway open for him.
Even Can Yu expressed a rare word of admiration for Ling Han. When one had created his own path, that would only be glimpsing the hope of becoming a heavenly venerate because attaining the heavenly venerable tier also needed luck.
For the three of them, they had actually created their own cultivation paths as well, yet were still unable to take that last step, and that was because they lacked an opportunity. This depended on a trigger, and it was possible that they would be able to succeed in the very next instant. No matter how defiant and reluctant Heavenborn was, he could not deny that Ling Han's battle prowess was indeed superior to his.
He humphed. So what? My physique is invincible, and what solution do you have for that? I will teach you how to behave properly today. Ling Han attacked repeatedly. His combat abilities had been nurtured through wandering the boundary between life and death countless times, so how could Heavenborn compare? Heavenborn had absolutely no problem bullying weaklings.
Under his overwhelming power, he would be able to win in a few exchanges. Even if his opponent was capable of matching him, Heavenborn would still win with his advantage in physique. However, faced with an opponent like the current Ling Han, Heavenborn's weakness was completely exposed.
Pang pang pang. Heavenborn was hit repeatedly, being thrashed madly. Ah! Heavenborn released a shout of fury. Though it was completely impossible for Ling Han's attacks to wound him, being beaten like this in full public still caused him great humiliation. Only defeating Ling Han would make up for this. Heavenborn used a powerful attack. Xiao xiao xiao. Multiple rays of golden light shot out from his body, turning into many golden arrows. Ling Han channeled the indestructible Heaven Scroll, and only crossed his arms in front of his face as protection. When the golden arrows swept past him, he was unwounded. He stated evenly, "It is not only you who has an absolute defense." Indestructible Heaven Scroll. Heavenborn forced out through gritted teeth. There was a sliver of spirit from the karmic life heavenly venerable within his body, and he had even snatched the Black Tower, so it was naturally impossible that he would be unaware of the indestructible Heaven Scroll. Heavenborn knew the indestructible Heaven Scroll, but did not cultivate it, because it was useless for him. His original physique had already reached the level of indestructible divine metal physique, and to attain indestructible heavenly venerate physique, the resources required were really, really too much. Even after he became a heavenly venerate, it would be possible that he could only successfully cultivate it a good many epochs later. Thus, Heavenborn couldn't be bothered to waste any more time. This would just be pointless effort. Heavenborn, try out this blow from me. Ling Han took a deep breath, his left hand stretching out levelly. Five elements lightning technique was unleashed, and 5 colored lights danced. Supplemented with white lightning, they immediately became 9 colored divine lightning. Heavenborn's expression immediately changed as his heart throbbed intensely. Chapter 2662. 2662 stepped on his face. 2662 stepped on his face. Heavenborn was astounded. His physique was comparable to divine metal, but the methods that Ling Han showed actually caused his heart to beat wildly. What was going on here? With a step, Ling Han charged towards Heavenborn. Heavenborn felt wary, yet did not dare take it head-on. He hurriedly used his movement technique to dodge. One pursued, while the other fled. In the time needed for a good few breaths, the two of them actually did not exchange even a single blow. This caused the spectators below them to be surprised. Heavenborn, don't you claim that your physique is unbeatable? You are not afraid of anyone below heavenly venerable tier. Yet, why are you now so afraid that you dare not face a strike head-on? Their cultivation levels were slightly too low, and they couldn't see very clearly, but AMU and the other big shots looked stunned. This is heavenly venerate technique. No wonder even I felt wariness that comes from not wanting to face it. However, even if a celestial king can use a heavenly venerate technique, would it still surpass the limits of the celestial king tier? As long as it has not reached the heavenly venerable tier, what would Heavenborn be afraid of? Could it be that this attack has actually broken through the limits of the celestial king tier? This was something that all 3 great big shots could not confirm. After all, they were all watching the battle. Heavenborn was battered and exhausted. Ling Han's power burst was actually superior to his, attacking hotly behind him. Heavenborn felt his face flush hotly. At the same time, a suspicion rose up in him as well. Could Ling Han's battle prowess really break through to the level of the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier? No matter how he thought about it, it was impossible. Ling Han was just a 7th heaven celestial king. Beneath them, Heavenborn subordinates were all rendered speechless. The invincible king in their eyes was actually fleeing. It should be known that even when it was a challenge against a 9th heaven celestial king, Heavenborn stood firmly, without showing any weakness. With this comparison, the gap was really too apparent. Heavenborn saw the change in everyone's expression. He gritted his teeth, and decided that things could not continue like this, or how could he bring himself to face others in the future? Moreover, he did not believe that Ling Han's battle prowess really could be as strong as that. Come! Heavenborn shouted loudly, his hands transforming into massive hammers, which barreled towards Ling Han. Clang!
Without dodging or evasion, he naturally was immediately embroiled in an exchange of blows with Ling Han.
Frightening power bubbled, forming a massive explosion in the skies. Haha, I have really overestimated you.
I have thought. Heavenborn laughed loudly.
In this exchange, he realized that he had been worried for nothing. Ling Han's power was only so, completely not as strong as his. And to think he had felt so wary. He had actually been intimidated by Ling Han. But in the next instant, Heavenborn's expression changed drastically. A frightening power of lightning surged into his body, and was presently wreaking havoc and exploding. Heavenborn could be considered divine metal physique, and even a peak-stage celestial physique's power could not wound him, but this was lightning. While his body would not be damaged, the former would not disperse without a long period of time. Every time it flowed through his body, his limbs were numbed, and he felt terrible. Correct. Divine metal did not fear lightning, but lightning would not be expending the slightest bit of power during its conduction by divine metal.
Every time it flowed through his body caused Heavenborn enough suffering.
Heavenborn was both stunned and curious.
There was absolutely no way that ordinary lightning could influence him, and Ling Han's power had clearly not reached the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, yet why would it cause him such suffering? Could it be that Ling Han was capable of drawing on the fundamental power of the Genesis world?
But if that was the case, that meant that Ling Han should already have become a heavenly venerate. In that case, killing Heavenborn would be practically as simple as slaughtering a chicken, so how could Ling Han possibly be fighting with so much hardship? Moreover, there were 7 ribbons of iridescent light wrapped around him. This was a genuine, authentic 7th heaven celestial king. But what Heavenborn didn't know was that while Ling Han could not draw on void particle energy, he was being tempered by this kind of energy, which allowed him to possess such terrifying body art.
When using this kind of power to employ the 5 elements lightning technique, the latter would naturally possess a sliver of power of the heavenly venerable tier as well.
Even if it was just a tiny bit, it was enough to cause great suffering to Heavenborn. After all, he was only at the 7th heaven as well. Heavenborn's whole body was flashing and sparking with lightning.
Because of his divine metal physique, he was practically invincible in the celestial king tier, yet now it was also because of his divine metal physique that he was suffering.
The power of lightning continued to surge without dispersing. Of course, if it had not been Heavenborn, any other person would have long since been killed by this strike.
Having fun?
Ling Han asked calmly. With his present strength, he could only use the 5 elements lightning technique 9 times, but this was also enough. Again. Pang, pang, pang. Ling Han sent out a series of palm strikes, every strike of the 5 elements lightning technique landing on Heavenborn. With Heavenborn's present state, there was absolutely no way he could dodge. His whole body was shuddering from being blasted, and he had lost all battle prowess. Heavenborn collapsed onto the ground, completely losing consciousness, but his body was still twitching. In this battle, Heavenborn was completely defeated. But even so, Ling Han still could not truly wound Heavenborn.
At present, the latter was like a celestial tool that had been suppressed, but was nonetheless indestructible.
However, this result surpassed everyone's expectations. This was Heavenborn, the man that claimed to be undefeatable. Before, while Heavenborn still lost in an exchange with a 9th heaven celestial king, even the 9th heaven celestial king still could not do anything to him. This present scene was really too shocking. In the skies, AMU and the others were also very surprised. There is another person now on the path to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, Du Shi stated. This is not strange. What is strange is the fact that he is only at the 7th heaven. Can Yu's eyes narrowed slightly, revealing a powerful fighting spirit. I hope he will mature quickly, AMU declared smilingly. Everyone looked up at Ling Han. This guy's destructive power was really too shocking, and even Heavenborn, who claimed to have a divine metal physique, had been defeated. In the future, Ling Han's accomplishments would definitely be astonishing. There were descendants or heirs of great forces here, and their eyes were all flashing. This person was definitely worthy of being enticed to join their side. Ling Han raised his foot and lowered it, stepping onto Heavenborn's face. He did not use any power, because Heavenborn's body was akin to divine metal, and there was absolutely no way he could be injured. Ling Han couldn't be bothered to waste effort, either. However, with the stomping down of his foot, a footprint was added to Heavenborn's face. Everyone saw this, and they all gaped widely.
This naturally did not cause the slightest damage to Heavenborn's physical body, but the significance of humiliating him could not be any more apparent. In the future, it was destined that if Heavenborn was not able to defeat Ling Han, he would never be able to raise his head high in front of Ling Han again. Hiss, Ling Han was meaning to form a grudge with Heavenborn that would only end with one of them dead. Ling Han laughed loudly and turned to leave. Yen Xianlu and the company were all very excited. Ling Han was their icon. He had defeated Heavenborn, who was acclaimed as undefeatable, which naturally made them feel as if they were pumped full of adrenaline. This battle caused a great commotion in the martial academy. It was said that when Heavenborn returned to consciousness, he spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood in fury, his expression frighteningly ugly. One of his subordinates wanted to comfort him, and Heavenborn almost killed him with a single strike. The influence of this battle on Heavenborn was too severe, causing him to fall off his high pedestal. On the contrary, Ling Han had replaced him, and become the brightest existence in this term of new disciples. A great many forces wanted to establish amicable relations with Ling Han. He was a future heavenly venerate. Though there were many heavenly venerates in the Flaming Frost realm at present, that still could not change the outstanding and invincible status of the heavenly venerable tier. A heavenly venerate was worthy of being enticed by any force. Hence, after this battle, Ling Han endlessly received invitations from various forces, who were inviting him to attend this banquet, or participate in that meeting, but Ling Han did not pay them any regard at all. He was tidying up the resources that he had previously obtained, and chose some items from among them that were useful for his cultivation of indestructible Heaven's Scroll. Then, he began a period of seclusion. These resources were considerably bountiful, and were equivalent to 10 times the amount of treasures bestowed by the Martial Academy over 100 million years. Ling Han made a rough calculation, and they were more or less enough to help him cultivate to the 8th level of the indestructible Celestial King physique.
Chapter 2663. 2663 Wang Clan's Invitation. 2663 Wang Clan's Invitation. With the time acceleration effects, Ling Han advanced to the 8th level of indestructible Celestial King physique in only 17 years. However, the amount of resources that he required in order to progress one step further would be astronomical. Ling Han planned to concoct alchemical pills, and proceed to sell them. At this moment, he received an invitation from a major force. Although he had received many invitations before, all of them were just sending him compliments, with subsequent requests to befriend him. However, this invitation was different as it directly stated its purpose was to help Ling Han sell his alchemical pills. This triggered Ling Han's interest as concocting alchemical pills was just a means for him to obtain cultivation resource. If he could be relieved from the selling part, then he would be most willing to do so. He gave it some consideration, and then decided to go to this appointment. This major force was known as the Wang Clan. The Grand Elder of the Wang Clan was a 3rd-tier heavenly venerate from the Flash Passion realm and also the greatest elite of that realm. He had arrived in this realm very early on, and brought many clan members along with him. After so many years, the Wang Clan had already been firmly established this place, and greatly expanded their influence. Within the Wang Clan, aside from the Grand Elder, there was a pseudo-heavenly venerate by the name of Wang Andy, who was at the moment resisting hysteria alongside the Grand Elder in the realm battlefield, while the one in charge of the clan's affairs was Wang Qianyang, a 9th Heaven Celestial King. However, the Wang Clan did not just invite Ling Han. To be exact, a descendant of the Wang Clan had just broken through to the Celestial King tier, and thus the Wang Clan invited guests from various realms, especially outstanding disciples of the Martial Academy. This descendant of the Wang Clan was also quite well known, going by the name Wang Jiayue. She was known to be a stunning beauty with amazing natural talent in cultivation. This time, she would be enrolling in the world's paramount Martial Academy after breaking through to the Celestial King tier. It was said that this young lady of the Wang Clan had many suitors, but she nevertheless had high aspirations, and had never shown any signs of affection to any man. However, there were also rumors that Wang Jiayue already had someone she admired, and thus did not pay any attention to other suitors at all. The Wang Clan was located in a faraway place. However, as the invited guests this time were mainly disciples of the Martial Academy, the event was held within Martial Academy grounds. After all, Wang Jiayue was about to enter the Martial Academy,
so this banquet was also held with the intention to make her presence known. Ling Han just traveled for a short while before arriving at the place where the Wang Clan's banquet was held. The place was an abode where a junior member of the Wang Clan resided. Now, he was already an 8th heaven celestial king, and his strength naturally ought not to be underestimated. This place was absolutely unlike the celestial king graveyard. Every disciple here would have the aptitude of a monarch tier at the very least. The reputation of the Wang Clan was great indeed. After all, they had a 3rd-tier heavenly venerate as Grand Elder and a great elite in the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, so there were many people who came, and a great number of disciples actually took pride in having received invitations from the Wang Clan.
Ling Han kept a very low profile. He handed over his invitation card, and quietly entered the venue. He helped himself to drinks while waiting quietly. Once the Wang Clan had received his invitation card, they would have known that he had arrived, and hence someone would eventually come out to meet with him and discuss the details of selling alchemical pills on his behalf. Ling Han sat there, drinking, and watched people come and go. Many people were greeting one another and building connections. Usually, everyone would have been preoccupied with cultivating. This was therefore a rare opportunity. However, there were also many people like Ling Han, who would sit by coolly while ignoring the others. "Wow you!" An exasperated voice sounded in Ling Han's ear. Ling Han turned his head, and saw that this person was somewhat familiar, but he didn't seem to quite remember, so he asked, "You are?" Xueqi was nearly angered to death. The misery that Ling Han had caused him. Yet, Ling Han didn't even remember who he was? He gritted his teeth and said, "I'm Xueqi." Ling Han thought about it for a bit, and then said, "Oh, you are Xueqi." Ling Han finally remembered. This person was the 2nd-generation young master whom Ling Han had taught a lesson when he initially entered the martial academy. The other party was extremely arrogant due to having a pseudo-heavenly venerate as a grand elder. Xueqi was fuming with rage. "I'm Xueqi, not Kai Zi." "It's not much different anyway," Ling Han said with a smile. Of course, this kind of 2nd-generation young master wasn't worth his time in his eyes. Xueqi humphed and said, "Ling Han, don't think that I can't put you in your place. My grand elder is coming back for a break from the realm battlefield. When that time comes, we'll see if you can still be as arrogant." Ling Han frowned slightly. "I didn't want to be bothered with you because to me, trash like yourself is not worthy, and yet here you are, getting on my nerves and thinking that I dare not put you in your place?" He moved directly, laying a hand down on Xueqi. Almost 100 million years had passed. Ling Han had already become a 7th heaven celestial king, while Xueqi was still the same as before. He couldn't dodge the palm strike at all even when he saw it coming. Xueqi was heavily slapped across the face with a crisp sound. Immediately, half of his face was crushed, leaving behind a bloody chin. The sight was terrifying and disgusting. Xueqi shrieked in pain, immediately attracting the attention of others, who all cast their eyes towards him. "Hey, isn't that Ling Han? And Xueqi? That Kaizi went to stir up trouble again? Hee. This time he had really hit a wall. Who is Ling Han?" He even stepped on Heavenborn's face. "He is the most impressive among this year's batch of disciples. Didn't you know that Lord Xuebing is going to take a break, and will be coming back from the realm battlefield? Oh, no wonder this brat dares to be so arrogant. He, a pseudo-heavenly venerate, and having returned from the bloody battle of the realm battlefield, his battle prowess cannot be compared with one who had just broken through to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. No matter how freakish the celestial king, he can only respectfully and with reverence greet him Lord when they meet. So Ling Han may be feeling great at this moment, but if Lord Xuebing gets angry, then the former will be punished." Everyone was engaged in a spirited discussion, and quite a number of people was even more gloating at Ling Han's misfortune. After all, Ling Han had suddenly risen too fast, causing many people to feel green with envy. Ling Han couldn't care less. If Xuebing came back to give him a hard time, then he would bring the black donkey out. The large black dog had such a close relationship with it. There wouldn't be any problem to bring it out to give people a scare. At this moment, the sound of jingling bells from girdle ornaments was heard, and a whiff of fragrant perfume came through. A young lady stepped out from the inner courtyard, dressed in a green palace dress and with jet-black hair cascading like waterfalls. Her skin was white as snow, and she was stunningly beautiful and ethereal. As soon as this young lady appeared, she immediately attracted the attention of many people,
and all of their eyes were burning with desire. She was the main character of today's banquet, the beloved daughter of the Wang Clan, Wang Jiayue. Celestial Maiden Jiayue. Many people called out, appearing quite fanatical. Even with Ling Han's high standards, he couldn't help but give a nod of approval and call her a beauty. It was obvious that this woman was indeed astonishingly beautiful. It was no wonder that she was the beloved daughter of the Wang Clan, and was being admired by countless people. Wang Jiayue greeted everyone with a curtsy and a sweet smile on her pretty face, but nevertheless did not pay attention to anyone, appearing quite arrogant. As her gaze quickly swept towards Xueqi, she couldn't help frown and asked, "What's going on?" An incident causing injury to another actually happened at her dinner banquet. This was disrespectful to the Wang Clan and to her, Wang Jiayue. Naturally, there would be someone rushing to flatter, and recounted to her what had just happened. Wang Jiayue instantly expressed her dissatisfaction, and said to Ling Han, "Young Master Ling, whatever grievances that you may have against young Master Zhua can be resolved outside. This is the Wang Clan, after all." Ling Han smiled. "All right, I will take note of it next time." In his eyes, Wang Jiayue was just a pampered little girl, and he didn't want to bother stooping down to her level. Chapter 2664. 2664 A Willful Little Princess. 2664 A Willful Little Princess. As Ling Han saw it, he had no wish to lower himself to the same level as the woman, but as Wang Jiayue saw it, Ling Han's attitude was too arrogant. Who was she? A member of the main branch of the Wang Clan, a little princess, and the most beloved descendant of the Grand Elder of the Wang Clan. And who was the Grand Elder of the Wang Clan? A third-tier heavenly venerate. When she spoke, it should be obeyed like a royal command. It was already great disrespect that this brat was not scared out of his wits and did not fall to his knees in front of her to beg for forgiveness. He was actually still so nonchalant and relaxed. Detestable. He was really too detestable. Ling Han, you have gone too far. Don't you know that this is the young mistress of the Wang Clan? Someone jumped out to charge and break through enemy lines for Wang Jiayue's sake. Not only was Wang Jiayue exquisitely beautiful, she was also astonishingly talented in cultivation. Moreover, she had a Grand Elder that was a third-tier heavenly venerate behind her. With these three factors all compounded on a single woman, how could it not turn countless men into besotted fools? That's right. This is territory of the Wang Clan. Someone shouted as well. At this moment, a great many people were rebuking Ling Han. This was a chance to perform. If they were able to form connections with the Wang Clan, this would possibly be a great opportunity for them. Of course, there were also a great many people that were standing by and watching. That was because there would always be people who were knowledgeable, and had found out that Ling Han had only managed to come here from the celestial realm because Zhou Hang had deliberately left behind a dimensional transfer seal for him. Perhaps Zhou Hang purely treasured Ling Han's talent, or perhaps he had plans of taking Ling Han as a disciple. It should be known that Zhou Hang himself was a sixth-tier heavenly venerate, while his master was the strongest existence across the realms. Seventh-tier heavenly venerate, Lin Luo. Compared with this, what was the Wang Clan? In any case, this was none of their business, so why should they join in on the excitement for no reason? It might cause them to fall out of favor with both sides. Ling Han frowned. He did not want to lower himself to the level of others, but that did not mean that he was an easy target to bully. His eyes swept over her, and he said calmly, "If I do not remember wrongly, this is the world's paramount martial academy. So what do you mean by mentioning the territory of the Wang Clan? Who do you think you are? With just mere words, you have decreed the territory of the world's paramount martial academy to be under the authority of the Wang Clan?" With this question from Ling Han, the one who had spoken was instantly rendered speechless. This was indeed not the Wang Clan's territory, but the Wang Clan was hosting a banquet here. From a certain angle, wasn't this the territory of the Wang Clan? Anyways, you must apologize to Celestial Maiden Wang. That man clung firmly on to this issue. Ling Han had no intention to waste any more words. He moved directly. Though that man was also a sixth heaven celestial king, even if he was a monarch tier, so what? Would he be able to withstand a single strike from Ling Han? Pah! The man was directly sent flying with a slap from Ling Han. Blood sprayed out in all directions. Like Xueqi,
Half of his face was also gone from the impact, and the sight was too terrible for words. Everyone inhaled sharply, and felt that Ling Han was really too violent. He was really not giving the Wang clan any face at all. Wang Jiayue was even trembling with anger, her delicate hands clenched tightly, and flames were practically about to shoot from her eyes. Meanwhile, Ling Han said slowly, "I suggest you take better care with your words, and don't think of making a rash move. Though I do not enjoy hitting women, I will not be merciful when I encounter a shrew, either." Wang Jiayue's small mouth was half gaping, with her almost passing out in anger. "Say shrew." She, the noble princess of the Wang clan, the most pampered descendant of a third-tier heavenly venerate, was actually called a shrew. But she really was intimidated by Ling Han. She was no idiot. That man, a sixth heaven celestial king, had been sent flying with a single slap, so what was she, a celestial king who had just broken through, worth? Though Ling Han was nonchalant and relaxed, the murderous aura in his eyes clearly indicated that his previous words were definitely not a joke. She was delicate and noble. Was there any need for her to come to blows with a gruff man? Wang Jiayue hurriedly stepped back. It was fine that she was no match for Ling Han. Could it be that there would be no one that could do anything to Ling Han with so many people here? After all, he was just a seventh heaven celestial king. "Who can suppress this villain for my sake?" she called out loudly. When her words fell, there was a complete silence. Even the person who had stood up for her previously only acted as if he had not heard her words. "This." Wang Jiayue was dumbfounded. In her thoughts, countless people would definitely immediately rush out and stand up for her with a mere word from her. But the situation now was something that she had never expected. How could this be? It was like these people were all very afraid of Ling Han. Who exactly was he? Was a seventh heaven celestial king really so strong? "You, what is it?" A gentle voice rang out, and a man in black robes strode in. 8 ribbons of iridescent light wrapped around him, a heroic spirit exuding from him. With his every movement, his aura was vigorous and active. "Brother Hai." When Wang Jiayue saw him, she instantly showed a hint of delight. It was as if she had found her pillar of support. She quickly pointed at Ling Han. "This guy acted violently and caused injury in the banquet of our Wang clan, and even wants to hit me." She felt extremely aggrieved. When had she ever received such treatment in all the years of her life? "Ma Yu Hai." Someone immediately muttered lowly. "This is also a character. He is one of the strongest in the last batch of disciples. It seems like he is a supreme monarch star. It's not just that, his father is Ma Feng." "PFF Ma Feng 1? He, just with the way you are mocking, it is really possible that even if you were killed, it would be a worthless death. Lord Ma Feng is a pseudo-heavenly venerate." Gasp! Everyone was whispering spiritedly, and also revealed the identity of this man in black robes. Judging by Wang Jiayue's attitude, the two of them seemed to be lovers? No wonder the young mistress of the Wang clan favors no one. It seems that she has long since had someone that she liked. Tisk. TSK. Ma Yuhai. No wonder, no wonder. A great many people showed hints of envy. That was Wang Jiayue. Not only was she extremely beautiful, she was also the most pampered descendant of a third-tier heavenly venerate. Marrying her, one would definitely get the full support of a third-tier heavenly venerate. Ma Yuhai strode over. He first paused to stand beside Wang Jiayue, his eyes gentle and doting as he said, You, don't be afraid. With your brother Hai here, I will definitely not allow you to feel the slightest grievance." Wang Jiayue nodded obediently, the eyes she directed at Ma Yuhai filled with admiration. She had known Ma Yuhai for a long time, and whichever excellent characters from her clan were compared against him, they all paled in color beside his brilliance. Hence, in her heart, Ma Yuhai was one who would never lose a battle. Whatever the matter, as long as Ma Yuhai said he could settle the matter, that meant he definitely could settle the matter. Ma Yuhai withdrew his gaze, then turned towards Ling Han, and said calmly, "Kneel down and apologize, and I can consider just crippling one of your arms." Several million years ago, he had already begun courting Wang Jiayue. Maintaining an elegant, dashing demeanor, and with his outstanding natural talent in cultivation, he caused this young girl who was inexperienced and naive to immediately develop affection for him. His goal was very clear,
and that was to get the Wang Clan as his backer. Of course, Wang Jiayue was exquisite, and her natural talent in cultivation was also extraordinary.
He also liked her very much. Ling Han chuckled and shook his head.
Just for these words, I will break all your 4 limbs. These people had repeatedly provoked him, and he had already lost all patience with them. Haha, to dare to act so arrogantly in front of me, Ma Yuhai. You are definitely the first.
Ma Yuhai sneered. He stretched out a hand to grab Ling Han. However, what right do you have to do this? Just lie down.
When celestial kings battled, the destruction caused would definitely be extremely widespread. Ordinarily, there was no way that this could happen indoors, but Ma Yuhai thought that his strength would overwhelm Ling Han. Since he would be able to take down Ling Han with a single move, then even if they fought indoors, so what?
Chapter 2665. 2665 Give some face to the Wang Clan. 2665 Give some face to the Wang Clan. Ling Han's right hand balled into a fist. Using the 9 transformations divine scroll instantly increased his battle prowess countless times over. The complete heavenly venerate technique could not be channeled at the same time, because it was too powerful. Before one could use it to hurt others, he would be crushed by the overwhelming power himself first. But against Ma Yuhai, the 9 transformations divine scroll was enough. With the power of an ant, you actually dare to think you can match me? Ma Yuhai couldn't help but sneer. A mere 7th heaven celestial king actually dared to face him head-on. He really had no measure of his own weight. Ma Yuhai was a supreme monarch star at the peak stage of the 8th heaven. Clang! The hands of the 2 men made contact. Instantly, a terrifying shock wave reverberated outwards. It was only an instant, and this abode was completely razed to the ground. Meanwhile, Ma Yuhai's expression changed rapidly. Pa! His right hand was instantly shattered into bits, and the destruction continued upwards. Pa pa pa! His bones broke one after the other, and it only stopped when it reached his shoulder. Ma Yuhai was furious, shocked, and fearful, all at the same time. Ling Han was clearly just a 7th heaven celestial king. Why was the power he showed so strong? Ma Yuhai actually was not able to withstand a single blow. This was natural. Ling Han's battle prowess had already advanced to the 9th heaven in the first place, so he wouldn't be much weaker than Ma Yuhai, and added with the power boost from the 9 transformations divine scroll that compounded his battle prowess countless folds, any 9th heaven celestial king would have to avoid Ling Han. How could they take this blow head-on? Yet Ma Yuhai had completely considered Ling Han below his notice, and was determined to confront him face to face. This was just asking for his own suffering. How could he not be injured in this case? Puh! Bloody mist spurted out from all over Ma Yuhai's body, and his whole person collapsed resoundingly. He wasn't dead, just knocked out. Among the rubble, spheres of light vibrated one after another. They clearly were the shields of source power that the guests had put up, using regulations to protect themselves. More importantly, a few 9th heaven celestial kings had stepped out previously, and worked together to take control of the situation. Otherwise, the majority of people here would be wounded and crippled. Everyone was dumbfounded. This was Ma Yuhai, a supreme monarch star at the peak stage of the 8th heaven, and he actually couldn't even withstand a single blow from Ling Han. This was something that they did not even dare to imagine. It was too inconceivable. Wang Jiayue's small mouth was also half gaping, her heart and soul stunned to the extreme. In her heart, Ma Yuhai was an invincible king. It would only be he who would be defeating a stronger opponent, and there was no one who could match him in the same cultivation level. How could she have possibly imagined that he would actually lose to a 7th heaven celestial king? That glorious and invincible image of Ma Yuhai immediately collapsed in her eyes. Ling Han strode forwards, and went to stand next to Ma Yuhai. He raised a foot high, and then suddenly stomped down. In his great agony, Ma Yuhai was forced to regain consciousness. He realized that his other arm had also been broken under Ling Han's foot. In fact, there wasn't even a sliver of flesh or blood left. It was like his arm had been severed. Ling Han, you should know when to stop. A 9th heaven celestial king spoke out, his expression filled with icy seriousness. He was a powerful figure of the Wang Clan, Wang Yongming. He was a monarch tier,
and 9th Heaven Celestial King tier was the limit of his aptitude. He had no chance of breaking through to the Heavenly Venerable tier, but was a 9th Heaven Celestial King tier not powerful enough? It was an existence that was invincible against anyone below the Heavenly Venerable tier. Wang Yongming could not tolerate Ling Han's arrogance. It should be known that Ling Han had just destroyed the Wang clan's banquet, and was now committing violence right in front of him. Did he really think that Wang Yongming was dead? Ling Han raised his foot again, aiming it right above Ma Yuhai's left leg. Only then did he look at Wang Yongming nonchalantly. What were you saying? Do not attempt to challenge. Pa! Wang Yongming had just spoken when Ling Han's foot had already stomped down, forcefully crushing Ma Yuhai's left leg as well. This was really a frank provocation, causing Wang Yongming's face to become extremely ugly. His hair fluttered windlessly as his eyes spat icy daggers. He wanted to make a move, and suppress this outrageously bold villain. Hee, young friend Ling is indeed astonishingly brave. Another 9th Heaven Celestial King laughed out loud. I was not mistaken about you. He clearly looked to be only in his 40s, yet actually called himself an old man. One clan leader. Wang Yongming was stunned, and turned towards that person. This was the present clan leader of the Wang clan, Wang Qianyang, one who had a chance of breaking through to the Heavenly Venerable tier. Such a powerful figure would actually speak up for Ling Han. Ling Han smiled. It was you who invited me? With his present strength, he was capable of standing equal even together with a 9th Heaven Celestial King. There was no need for him to have any reservations or be overly polite. That is correct. I am Wang Qianyang, the clan leader of Wang Clan said smilingly. Young friend Ling, could we have a word? Ling Han looked Wang Qianyang over for a while. Though this person was also a 9th Heaven Celestial King, the feeling he gave off was more than 10 times stronger than Wang Yongming. He thought for a while, and then said, fine. For the sake of the clan leader of Wang Clan, I will spare one of his legs. Previously, Ma Yuhai had said that he would cripple one of his arms, so Ling Han decided to break all of his limbs. However, Wang Qianyang clearly had shocking battle prowess, yet still treated him politely, so Ling Han decided to give him some face. Wang Yongming almost exploded with fury. You, a mere 7th Heaven Celestial King, think you're worthy of giving face to the Wang clan? Yet Wang Qianyang laughed loudly, and beckoned a hand at Ling Han. Young friend Ling, come. Ling Han walked over, Wang Qianyang leading the way. The two of them arrived at the summit of this mountain, clearly not wanting others to listen in on their conversation. Wang Jiayue thought for a moment, and then followed them. Everyone was hissing sharply, thinking that this Ling Han was really powerful. He struck 3 times at the banquet of the Wang clan, and was extremely violent. In fact, he even destroyed the abode belonging to a descendant of the Wang clan. However, the clan leader of the Wang clan did not fault Ling Han at all. Instead, he treated him with politeness. If any of you can defeat Heavenborn, you will definitely be worthy of the same kind of treatment, someone said slowly. When these words fell, everyone was struck speechless. Defeat Heavenborn. What kind of joke was that? Even the majority of 9th Heaven Celestial Kings were incapable of that. It definitely could only be done by one of the big shots like Amu, Du Shi, and the like. But Ling Han achieved this feat when he was only a 7th Heaven Celestial King. Just for that reason, so what if the Wang clan treated him like an esteemed guest? At the summit, Ling Han stood side by side with Wang Qianyang. Young friend also studies alchemy? Wang Qianyang asked with some curiosity. He had been alive for over 7 epochs, but he still felt that he did not have enough time to break through to the Heavenly Venerable tier. He was practically in a constant state of seclusion. Yet Ling Han clearly had astonishing accomplishments in cultivation, so how could he have time to spare on alchemy at the same time? Ling Han smiled. It's not just mere studies. I can concoct all alchemical pills. What arrogance! Wang Qianyang was slightly taken aback, and then burst out laughing. Young friend Ling is really not the slightest bit modest. I am just telling the truth as it is, Ling Han answered. Wang Qianyang nodded. The reason why I invited you here is because I wish to have a partnership with you in an alchemy business. I am sure that you, young friend, have limited energy, and cannot waste it on pointless miscellaneous matters. Thus, our Wang Clan can take charge of matters like collecting ingredients and selling alchemical pills. All the young friend has to do is concoct alchemical pills. Oh, then how would the profits be shared? Ling Han did not object. He indeed had no wish to waste his time on miscellaneous matters. 50-50, Wang Qianyang replied. Ling Han only had to concoct alchemical pills, yet could earn 50% of the profits. This seemed to be too profitable for Ling Han, but that was actually not true. 5-star alchemists were too rare. Which of them was not extremely outstanding? They basically would not act upon invitation. Ling Han considered for a while, and then said, I want divine metal. Divine metal. Wang Qianyang was surprised. With Ling Han's abilities and power, could it be that he still did not have a celestial tool? That was not right. If Ling Han was only lacking a celestial tool, he wouldn't be saying this. Your entire share of the profits has to be paid in terms of divine metal? Chapter 2666. 2666 Change of Attitude. 2666 Change of Attitude. Ling Han nodded and cracked a grin. That's right. The Wang clan had great power, and their grand elder was even a third-tier heavenly venerate. Thus, the difficulty of obtaining divine metal for the Wang clan definitely was much lower than for Ling Han. If it were not because of this, what need would there be for Ling Han to cooperate with the Wang clan? He could concoct alchemical pills himself, and all the profit would be his. Wang Qianyang considered for a while and said, agreed. But he immediately continued, divine metal is too valuable. Young friend, you would have to concoct a great many alchemical pills to exchange for a single piece. I know. Ling Han nodded. You can deliver the ingredients to me tomorrow. Wang Qianyang laughed. This kind of swift decisiveness in Ling Han's style was really to his tastes. Suddenly, he had an idea, but after slight hesitation, he reconsidered. When this boy has concocted a few cauldrons of alchemical pills, I'll consider this again after checking the grade and pill concoction success rate. I'll take my leave. Ling Han clasped his hands together. Since the major matter was already decided, there was no further need for him to stay any longer. Young friend, won't you have some wine? Wang Qianyang tried to urge him to stay. Ling Han did not speak, and merely signaled at the foot of the mountain. Only now did Wang Qianyang recall how the abode below them had already been destroyed by the shock wave from the battle between Ling Han and Wang Qianyang, so he could only grin awkwardly, and said, please young friend. Only after Ling Han had left did Wang Jiayue walk out. Grandfather, why are you so polite to that madman? She asked, acting spoiled. Wang Qianyang revealed an amiable smile. He had always liked this granddaughter. He has true ability, so he can naturally be mad. Wang Jiayue pouted. He's just slightly skilled in battle. Ha ha ha. Wang Qianyang laughed loudly. He stroked his granddaughter's head and suddenly said, You aren't very little any longer, and now you have broken through to the Celestial King tier, so it should be about time that you consider the matter of marriage, right? Wang Jiayue instantly became shy, stomped her foot, and exclaimed, I have no wish to marry. I want to stay with grandfather. Silly girl, who wouldn't marry when they grew up? Ling Han returned to his own abode, and recounted the events of today to the women, which also made the latter shake their heads repeatedly. This husband was really not the type to let their hearts rest easy. Wherever he went, he would be causing trouble. The very next morning, as expected, the Wang clan sent an important character to deliver the ingredients for alchemy. It was Wang Yangming. These ingredients were too valuable. What was to be done if there was a robbery on their way here? With a ninth heaven celestial king's protection on the way, even if he encountered someone that he could not match, he could still easily and happily escape. Wang Yangming clearly did not like Ling Han very much. After arriving here, he tossed a spatial god tool over to Ling Han and left quickly, as if looking at Ling Han any longer would upset him. Ling Han naturally would not be concerned. Wang Yangming did not like him, and he too did not like Wang Yangming very much, either. For the sake of divine metal, Ling Han began pill concoction. He examined the ingredients that the Wang clan had delivered first, and couldn't help but feel rueful. They were indeed a noble clan. They were very wealthy. These ingredients were enough to concoct 7 cauldrons worth of Celestial King tier pills, and according to Wang Yongming, this was only a negligible amount. A force whose existence was measured in epochs truly had extraordinary wealth. Ling Han channeled his physique, and time accelerated. In only a few hours, he concocted his first cauldron of alchemical pills. Perfect and flawless. Ling Han smiled. As his cultivation level progressed, it was also an easy matter for him to concoct Celestial King tier pills. Not only could he ensure his pill completion rate, the grade of the completed pills would either be high grade or peak grade. He continued, and he concocted all 7 cauldrons worth of alchemical pills in a single day. Then, he notified Wang Yongming to come and collect the alchemical pills. Not too long after, Wang Yongming arrived, but his expression was slightly dark. "Why have you asked me to come?" he demanded impatiently.
"The alchemical pills are completed. You can take them now." Ling Han tossed over that same spatial god tool. Wang Yongming scoffed. What kind of joke was this? Only a single day had passed, and Ling Han had concocted all the alchemical pills? Did he think that Wang Yongming only knew to ingest alchemical pills, and had absolutely zero knowledge of alchemy? Brat, one should be down to earth. He was just about to teach Ling Han the proper way to behave, but when his divine sense extended into the spatial god tool, he immediately released a shocked exclamation because there were indeed 7 bottles of alchemical pills inside. This can't be real, right? Wang Yongming hurriedly took out a bottle of alchemical pills, and after removing the cork, his expression was instantly moved. They were real alchemical pills. He switched to another bottle. This was real as well. All 7 of them were. Concocting 7 cauldrons of Celestial King tier alchemical pills in a single day was amazing. Hang on. Wang Yongming looked stunned. Making those 7 cauldrons of alchemical pills was indeed theoretically possible. But wasn't it very normal for the cauldron to explode in the process of pill concoction? Especially in the case of Celestial King tier pills. The concoction process was naturally even more difficult, and the cauldron exploding was an extremely common occurrence. To successively concoct 7 cauldrons, while the good luck for all 7 cauldrons was off the charts, with not one exploding. Was there any such coincidence? Wang Yongming took a deep breath, and then nodded. "Young friend Ling, I have underestimated you previously." He bowed slightly towards Ling Han as courtesy. Ling Han couldn't help but greatly change his opinion of this man. As expected of one who was born in a noble clan. Though it was inevitable that he would have some arrogance, he was able to go with the flow, and his manner was extraordinary as well. "It's fine." Ling Han nodded. "I will immediately meet with the clan leader. I hope we will develop a stronger relationship in the future," Wang Yongming said, smiling. Ling Han bared his teeth in a grin. This old geezer had really changed his attitude too much and too fast, which made it hard for Ling Han to adjust to it all of a sudden. He kept feeling that this old geezer had some kind of ulterior motive. Wang Yongming left, and very soon returned. This time, he brought a great amount of ingredients, enough to concoct 20 cauldrons worth of Celestial King tier pills. Ling Han continued his pill concoction, and he notified Wang Yongming to come again only 3 days later. Though Wang Yongming had long since prepared himself, he still got a great shock. 20 cauldrons, not 1 pill less. This had reached the greatest value theoretically possible. Wang Yongming was amazed, and left once more with the alchemical pills. A day later, Wang Qianyang came personally, along with Wang Jiayue. She had already passed through the 9 Deaths formation, and had become an official disciple of the Martial Academy. "Young friend, though I have already had very high expectations of you, to think that still was an underestimation." Wang Qianyang sighed ruefully. He thought back to his conversation with Ling Han several days ago. When the latter had lightly said that he could concoct any kind of alchemical pill, Wang Qianyang had not taken it seriously. He thought that it was inevitable that Ling Han would exaggerate, having achieved such accomplishments at such a young age, and had not imagined that not only had Ling Han just told the truth as it had been, he had basically been modest. Meanwhile, Wang Jiayue's beautiful eyes were bright as she looked at Ling Han in surprise. She also found out about Ling Han's various feats in the last few days, and finally knew how amazing this guy was. In comparison, Ma Yuhai was practically trash. "Young friend, There are 3 pieces of divine metal here. Wang Clan handed over a spatial celestial tool.
Ling Han naturally would not be reserved. He stretched out his hand and took it. With a sweep of his divine sense, he immediately grinned. As expected of the Wang clan, they were truly wealthy. Even for something as valuable as divine metal, they could give out 3 pieces in a single stroke.
You've given too much. Ling Han was pleased, but still spoke frankly.
Though he had concocted close to 30 cauldrons worth of alchemical pills, with a prerequisite of taking 50% of the profits, 1 piece of divine metal was enough for his fee.
Wang Clan laughed loudly. The remaining 2 pieces will be an advance payment then. There was something as good as this. Ling Han smiled. Does clan leader Wang have some other business? Wang Clan was pleased. This brat really knew how to read between the lines. My Yu has reached an appropriate age, and wishes to seek an ideal husband.
He had not even finished his words when Ling Han interrupted, and said, I have a brother who has astonishing natural talent in cultivation, and has not yet married at present.
Wang Clan's face instantly turned dark. Chapter 2667 2667 Alliance Through Marriage 2667 Alliance Through Marriage. Wang Clan had just been praising Ling Han for his intelligence. Yet why was his intelligence inadequate all of a sudden? Wang Clan naturally knew that it was not because Ling Han had suddenly become dumb, but rather that he was tactfully refusing the offer. Still, Wang Clan was very confused.
That granddaughter of his was extremely beautiful, and it was not that Ling Han had never seen her before, so why did he refuse without even the slightest bit of consideration?
Meanwhile, Wang Jiayue appeared very embarrassed.
Though neither man had spoken bluntly, who could not read the meaning that underlay their words?
Ling Han had actually rejected her. This opinionated guy, what right did he have to be so arrogant? Tui, did he think that he could ignore her just because his cultivation rate was slightly faster, and he could concoct some alchemical pills? This damned bastard. Wang Clan naturally would not be concerned that his granddaughter was about to explode with fury. He was also an old fox himself. Since Ling Han was already saying this, he would not embarrass himself further, either. Thus he said, Then, I will find more divine metal for you, young friend. Thank you, Ling Han answered, smiling. Wang Clan brought his granddaughter with him when he left. Though Ling Han could see that Wang Jiayue was close to exploding with fury, he only acted as if he had not seen anything. When one had reached heights that he had, was there still need to be concerned about a mere first heaven celestial king? Even if this celestial chi had a very powerful background. Ling Han continued to concoct alchemical pills. At present, there were 2 things that he wanted to complete the most. Firstly, to increase the level of the indestructible celestial king physique to the 9th level, and secondly, to advance the divine demon sword to the level of heavenly venerate tool. To accomplish these 2 tasks, he required massive wealth, so he could only work hard on concocting alchemical pills. But the fact that the Wang clan had intentions of betrothing their princess to Ling Han still spread out. This filled everyone with envy. Wang Jiayue's conditions were too outstanding. Who did not want to pluck this delicate flower for themselves? And when Ma Yuhai heard this piece of news, he was so infuriated that he trashed his whole abode. He was too outraged. In these millions of years, he had been nurturing affection with Wang Jiayue, and just when it seemed like he was about to claim his prize, someone actually interfered. Not only had Ma Yuhai sustained great humiliation, his future bride had also been snatched. He could not swallow this injustice. But Ma Yuhai himself was no match for Ling Han.
Though he had indeed been careless at the time, when he now replayed the events in his mind, there was no way he could parry this kind of attack even if he used his full effort.
What could he do? Could it be that he could only watch helplessly, and allow Ling Han to mature and grow even more? I'll find someone to help me. Ma Yuhai thought for a long time, and finally came to a decision.
Though it was very demeaning that someone with his strength had to find another person to help him to deal with the 7th heaven celestial king, it was still better than his millions of years of effort ending up in nothing.
Furthermore, he was indeed very fond of Wang Jiayue as well, so it was not completely because she was useful to him. Ma Yuhai left his abode, climbing mountains and crossing the distance, and arrived at the foot of a dangerously steep peak. He was just about to ascend the peak when an elder suddenly appeared.
His whole figure was stooped, and he coughed repeatedly as he said, "So it is young Master He.
May I know why you have come?"
Though this elder's vitality was declining, and he looked like he would die at any moment, Ma Yuhai did not dare to look down on him in the slightest. This elder had been a powerful man in his youth, and who knew how many strong beings he had killed. Yet because the ensuing chaos was really too great, he could only hide himself in the world's paramount martial academy afterwards and wait for things to blow over. Furthermore, the person standing behind this elder was even more frightening.
"Greetings, Lord Qin Shuang." Ma Yuhai paid his greetings respectfully.
"I have something to see young Master He about."
"Young Master is presently in seclusion," the elder, Qin Shuang, answered. Ma Yuhai thought for a moment, and then said, "Then please help me, Lord Qin Shuang."
He took out a bottle of alchemical pills, and said, "This is the heavenly venerate pill that my father has concocted through extracting his own blood essence.
I am sure it would be of some help to Lord Qin Shuang." Qin Shuang's expression involuntarily changed, and he showed a hint of excitement. He was a ninth heaven celestial king. Of course, he had long since reached the peak stage, yet had always been troubled by the fact that he could not break through to the heavenly venerable tier. Though Ma Yuhai's old man was only a pseudo-heavenly venerate, and the heavenly venerate pill he concocted did not live up to its name, it would still be very helpful to Qin Shuang. It was possible that it could help him glimpse a sliver of the profound secrets of the heavenly venerable tier. Concocting a heavenly venerate pill required extracting one's own blood essence, and whether for heavenly venerates or pseudo-heavenly venerates, this was a tremendous expense. They could only concoct a single pill in who knew how many years.
If it were not for the fact that Ma Yuhai's own father was a pseudo-heavenly venerate, it was probable that even his own grandfather could not bear to use his blood essence to concoct an alchemical pill.
Qin Shuang could not refuse.
When one had reached a height that he had, the only thing that was worthy of his attention, and the only matter that he would take to heart, was the matter of breaking through to the heavenly venerable tier.
"What do you want my help with?" Qin Shuang asked.
"To kill a man,"
Ma Yuhai said, his expression completely twisted.
"Whom?"
Qin Shuang was completely unconcerned. There were countless he had killed years ago, and there was no small number of prodigies among them, either. Naturally, he would not be shaken.
"Ling Han."
"Tell me his detailed information." "All right." Ling Han focused on concocting alchemical pills. He could concoct a number of cauldrons in a single day, and he was sure that even with the wealth of the Wang Clan, they would soon be completely drained by his alchemical pills. Of course, the Wang Clan would definitely only be pleased by this. Only when resources could be converted into alchemical pills that could be used would their true value be displayed. However, his calm days did not last for very long. He suddenly paid him a visit.
"What is it?"
Ling Han still took some time out to meet him. Ma Yuhai made a public announcement, demanding that you refuse the request for alliance through marriage from the Wang Clan, or he would make you suffer, he said. Ling Han was surprised. This Ma Yuhai really hadn't learned enough from his lesson? He had been beaten so terribly, yet now was actually jumping around so energetically again. Where had his confidence come from?
"No need to give him any regard."
Ling Han shook his head. Still, he had already refused the suggestion from the Wang Clan for an alliance through marriage in the first place. If the Wang Clan spread out the news, wouldn't others think that he was afraid now? But if he was to agree to the marriage from the Wang Clan to disprove this point, wouldn't it be even more of a joke? When there was no response from Ling Han, Ma Yuhai sent out another invitation to Ling Han a few days later, inviting him to visit his own abode so they could settle this matter once and for all. Ling Han couldn't help but scoff. Who did this guy think he was? He demanded Ling Han's presence, so Ling Han had to oblige. He ignored this person again. He had to concoct alchemical pills every day. He was very busy. However, the events that took place in the next few days angered Ling Han completely. Yi Yen Xianlu, and the others, as long as they had come from the celestial realm, were all challenged, but they were defeated and beaten beyond recognition. In the martial academy, as long as the gap of cultivation levels did not surpass 2 cultivation levels, one could attack even without obtaining the consent of the other party beforehand. Needless to say, this had to be linked with Ma Yuhai. Otherwise, it was really too much of a coincidence. And just right at this time, Ma Yuhai sent another invitation to Ling Han, asking him to meet him on Great Fiery Mountain 3 days later. If Ling Han refused, then the challenges for the cultivators from the celestial realm would continue. Husband, Ma Yuhai is clearly no match for you, yet repeatedly provokes you. He must be planning something, Zhu Shen'er said. Ling Han nodded.
He should have predicted that I would ignore him from the very start, so the invitation to his abode was only a bluff.
Everything after that was just paving the way for Great Fiery Mountain. On the way there, it is possible that there would be ultimate elite sniping you? Bewitching Maiden Ro asked.
Ling Han stretched out a fist and rapped the table, saying, "There are only 2 heavenly venerates in the martial academy at present, and neither of them have any relation with Ma Yuhai.
In that case, who at the Celestial King tier would be able to kill me?" Chapter 2668. 2668 Ambush. 2668 Ambush. Husband, you are mistaken by thinking like this, Li Sikan said.
All of us are particularly aware of your strength, but Ma Yuhai had no idea.
Xue Yanyu nodded immediately. That's right.
Although Ma Yuhai is not your match, from his point of view, he probably thought that you were equivalent to one at the peak of the 9th heaven. Bewitching Maiden Ro continued, however, he likely surmised that if you met a monarch star or even a supreme monarch star at the peak of the 9th heaven, then you wouldn't be his match. So, Ma Yuhai must have engaged such an elite.
All the women reached the same conclusion. Ling Han laughed.
Conventionally, my battle prowess indeed appears to be only at the late stage of the 9th heaven. However, with the eruption of power from either the 9 transformations divine scroll or 5 elements lightning technique, I could take on even a supreme monarch star at the peak of the 9th heaven. Furthermore, I still have the indestructible heaven scroll when it is activated. My physique is comparable to divine metal, so escaping definitely won't be a problem.
You will be going for this appointment?
All the women looked at Ling Han. Even the Empress stopped cultivating and gazed at him in wonder.
Ling Han nodded.
I also want to take this opportunity to get rid of Ma Yuhai in order to prevent him from creating more trouble for me. At the end of the day, he is a disciple of the Martial Academy, so if this leaks out, Helian Xuanxue said hesitantly. The Martial Academy did not object to healthy competition among its disciples, and it wouldn't even matter if one was to bully others. As long as the gap in cultivation level did not exceed 2 levels, then they could horse around however they wanted. However, the bottom line was that one absolutely couldn't kill or maim another. The people here might become part of the main forces resisting hysteria in the future, so how could they be allowed to get hurt in an internal strife?
Ling Han thought for a moment. I will assess the situation.
I will kill if I can, but if I can't, then I will kill him in the future. Ling Han was certain that Ma Yuhai had invited him out of the Martial Academy with the intention of killing him. Facing such a person, Ling Han naturally wanted the other party dead. Of course, it would be best to be able to kill him this time, but if he couldn't, then he would just keep it in mind first. He absolutely wouldn't be letting him go.
3 days later, Ling Han set off towards Great Fiery Mountain. Great Fiery Mountain was located in the west of the Martial Academy, and the journey there would take about 2 hours. Of course, this was calculated based on the pace of Ling Han's stroll. The average Celestial King would need to be running and still take more time than this. If they wanted to arrive on time for their appointments, they had to set off even earlier. Ling Han strolled at a leisurely pace, stepping on the regulations of space, whereby a single step covered a boundless distance. He appeared to be absent-minded, yet everything happening in his surroundings was actually under his supervision. Even a tiny bit of movement couldn't escape his vision. Ling Han let out a low hum in surprise. The day was originally clear and sunny, yet it seemed to have turned into a dark night all of a sudden, and it was pitch black everywhere. Not only had the environment darkened, but it seemed that divine sense had also been restricted, and could only be released up to a distance of no more than 50 kilometers away. Any further than that, it was as if it had hit a dam, and would bounce back immediately. Ling Han stopped in his tracks, and crossed his hands behind his back, neither in a hurry nor in a state of panic. Pa pa pa, the sound of applause was heard, and a hunched old man came out, looking like he was not far from death, but Ling Han didn't dare to underestimate him at all. He sensed that this old man was like an ancient vicious creature, with murderous aura rising sky high, incomparably formidable. You can still be so calm in the face of sudden change. Truly, that is rarely seen in my lifetime, the old man commented. Ling Han smiled lightly. Since I have the strength, why should I be nervous? Even if you have countless different moves, I can resolve it with a single punch. Ha ha ha, well said. The old man laughed, and then coughed violently. However, little guy, do you think your strength is enough? It ought to fall short slightly in comparison to yours, but everyone has their own ultimate technique, and once the ultimate technique is launched, then it is difficult to say who is stronger. Ling Han smiled. Old sir, how should I address you? Qin Shuang. The old man stared at Ling Han, and his eyes gradually lit up as his oppressive power kept getting stronger. Ma Yuhai asked you to take action? Ling Han asked another question was idle anyway.
Yes, for a heavenly venerate pill, which I'm very satisfied with.
Qin Shuang didn't bother concealing the fact. Little guy, are you committing suicide, or do you want me to take action?
Oh, why should I commit suicide without reason?
Ling Han said with a smile.
Because if I am to take action, then you will die. Very miserably.
Qin Shuang said menacingly, his gaze glinting coldly, with spasmodic chills and full of murderous aura.
Ling Han wasn't bothered.
As I have said just now, I may not be as strong as you, but once we fight and an ultimate technique is launched, then it is hard to say who is stronger. Looks like you are determined to have me take action. Qin Shuang stood up and moved towards Ling Han. His hand stretched out, and was transformed into a huge black palm, exuding a cold silver radiance as multiple seals appeared one after another, and emitting an overwhelmingly powerful oppressive force.
This was an overlord of the ninth heaven.
Ling Han intended to test the opponent's strength, so he mustered up his power, and delivered it in a punch to counter the attack. Boom! In the midst of a huge explosion, Ling Han burst out like a cannonball. Pang pang pang! He broke through several mountain peaks in a row.
He ultimately came to a stop, not because it was the end of the path, but rather it was due to him hitting an incomparably sturdy invisible wall, which blocked him.
This is the Little Tianyuan Great Captive Formation. As long as one is a celestial king, it is impossible to leave if one is already trapped in it. Qin Shuang walked over from the distance step by step. He had the absolute upper hand in this exchange. Only this core stone in my hand can unlock the Great Formation, so you can forget about escaping. By the way, this formation has isolated space, and is a small world by itself. It is impossible for the people outside to find out that a battle is going on here. Qin Shuang said slowly with a cruel expression on his face, just like a cat toying with a mouse. A long, long time ago, he had been the most brutal murderer. Countless elites and prodigies had died by his hands.
Although he had behaved himself for the past few trillion years, his true nature remained unchanged, and now his bloodlust was aroused.
According to the information that Qin Shuang had obtained, this person by the name of Ling Han was extremely freakish, with an evolution index of 12, yet his cultivation level was only at the 7th heaven. He defeated Ma Yuhai with a single blow through the eruption of some kind of secret technique. Although Qin Shuang was a little curious, he didn't take it to heart. Because he was a monarch star at the peak of 9th heaven after all. Ling Han drew out Divine Demon's sword. The opponent's strength was indeed too big, so there was no need to use his own shortcomings to counter the strengths of his opponent. Celestial Tool.
Qin Shuang frowned, but thereafter he immediately relaxed as he also possessed a celestial tool.
He also took out his own celestial tool, which was a saw blade.
One could still see specks of blood on it, and it was extremely offensive to the eye. Some stains were as deeply cold as ice, some were like raging flames, and some were like flashing thunder. This was due to him having killed too many powerful celestial kings, so the inextinguishable blood essence of these celestial kings had coagulated on his celestial tool.
Die!
Qin Shuang moved forward again to attack. He was already in front of Ling Han in a single step, and slashed at him with his sword.
Terrible murderous aura was flaring up. Wielding a sword in hand, Qin Shuang seemed to have changed into a different person.
With the fluttering of his gray hair, there wasn't any trace of old age at all.
Ling Han brandished his sword to counter the attack. Boom, boom, boom. As the celestial tools clashed, they raised a boundless storm. Under such overwhelming murderous aura, the regulations of the surrounding area were all being cut off and smashed. Qin Shuang laughed.
He was a 9th heaven celestial king after all, and his ability to control the regulations superseded that of Ling Han. He stretched out his hand to grab, and all regulations close and afar were immediately plucked out by him, with this move directly causing Ling Han to be unable to utilize any regulations. Chapter 2669 2669 Suffering Consequences of His Own Actions. 2669 Suffering Consequences of His Own Actions. 4 other 7th Heaven Celestial Kings. This was fatal. The reason why Celestial Kings were so strong was because they stood at the level of regulations, and could directly draw and use regulations, issuing punishment on behalf of the heaven and earth. Why was there a saying that the Celestial King tier was divided into 9 levels, with each level bringing one closer to ascending the heavens then? It was also because of regulations. It was just like what Qin Shuang was doing now as he directly dispersed the regulations in the surroundings. With his higher cultivation level, he naturally could draw on regulations of heaven and earth from a wider range, but Ling Han could not. A celestial king whose regulations had been stripped from him. How much stronger would he be compared to a severing mundane tier? Ha ha ha! Qin Shuang laughed maniacally, brandishing his saw blade as he approached. No matter how strong Ling Han's secret technique was, it was useless. As long as there were no regulations Ling Han could draw on, he was just a dead bug. Qin Shuang could take his life with a single strike. Ling Han was unmoved. Waving the divine demon's sword, he went forth to greet Qin Shuang. Boom! The 2 celestial tools clashed, instantly inciting a powerful shockwave, and Qin Shuang's figure swayed and quivered before being sent flying. He paled in shock, and was filled with complete confusion. He had actually fallen into a disadvantage in terms of power. How could this be? It should be known that Ling Han had not been able to match Qin Shuang at all in the previous exchanges. The gap between them was not just a little bit. Why then was it that when things had turned this way, it was Qin Shuang that had become outmatched instead? Ling Han's strength had suddenly spiked. That was not it, Qin Shuang immediately thought. With his insight, he naturally could assess immediately that Ling Han's power had not increased at all. Instead, there was even a slight decline. The one who had changed was Qin Shuang himself. His power had fallen too greatly. That was very normal. Though Qin Shuang could still extract regulations, they were still coming from a farther area, after all. Originally, there was nothing wrong with this. Even if Qin Shuang could only extract just 10% of the power of regulation, faced with Ling Han who could draw none, he would enjoy a completely one-sided crushing advantage. The problem here now was that Ling Han's power had completely not declined because he was not able to extract regulations, but Qin Shuang, on the other hand, was experiencing a great loss of strength due to being able to draw on only a smaller amount of regulations. With this comparison, he was actually no match for Ling Han in terms of power. Once he figured this out, Qin Shuang felt both shock and regret. He was shocked. Ling Han had to have also cultivated body arts, and that was why he could still be so powerful when he could not draw and use regulations. But this brat's body art was too domineering. It could actually stand at the same level as regulations, or was even slightly stronger than that. What Qin Shuang regretted was that he had destroyed the space in their surroundings himself, damaging the regulations in their vicinity. Pushing himself into a muddy swamp, wasn't he an idiot? Thanks, Ling Han quipped, adding fuel to the fire. Qin Shuang's face flushed red involuntarily. This was really too ironic. Previously, he had been acting all high and mighty, looking like he was confident and that everything was under his control, and thinking that he would be able to kill Ling Han with just a single strike. Yet the result was completely the opposite. To say nothing of killing Ling Han. He himself had suffered a minor loss. Qin Shuang roared in fury, pointing the saw blade in his hand at Ling Han. You little brat, you actually dare mock me. How dare you? What is it? You have come to kill me, and I still have to treat you with respect? Am I a fool, or are you the one who is asking for punishment? Ling Han's tongue was merciless. This had come from time spent with the large black dog. His skill at insulting was definitely not inferior to his battle prowess. Qin Shuang was so infuriated that his gray hair fluttered windlessly. He did not waste any more words with Ling Han, and delivered another strike with his saw blade. Ling Han was unafraid. Not only did he brandish the divine demon sword to meet this oncoming strike, His left hand clenched into a fist, launching a mad barrage of punches at Qin Shuang. At that moment, Ling Han was in an absolutely aggressive stage, and was completely capable of beating down on Qin Shuang. Qin Shuang was feeling extremely gloomy. His strength was far superior to Ling Han's, but because he had not expected that Ling Han had actually cultivated a frightening body art as well, the result was his starting on the wrong foot that had led to him losing the whole game. At present, he could only be thrashed helplessly. Very quickly, Qin Shuang was beaten beyond recognition. However, he was a peak stage 9th Heaven Monarch star after all, and also had control of this great formation. He was presently refreshing the space in this area. Once the space changed, regulations would naturally return to their original state. By then, Qin Shuang would still be the high and mighty overlord of the 9th Heaven, while Ling Han would also be beaten back to his original state. With the help of a celestial tool, Qin Shuang could just barely hold up. After paying the price of having 3 punches from Ling Han land on him, he finally extracted the regulations from a different space and switched them out. Immediately, calm was reinstated into the chaos of regulations.
"Brat, you will pay for this,"
Qin Shuang roared furiously. He had sustained 3 punches from Ling Han, and even with his strength, one of his ribs, hip bones, and shoulder bones had been broken. He was unable to heal himself even after a long period of time. However, now that regulations were reinstated, his injuries immediately healed, and a vicious light shone from his eyes.
"You have angered me completely."
Previously, he had been repeatedly calling himself old man, and now that he was extraordinarily infuriated, he naturally could no longer be bothered.
He only had one thought in mind: take Ling Han down, torture him to his heart's content, and then finally kill him. Ling Han laughed loudly. A minor character that stays in the shadows, only versed in sneak attacks and ambushes. If this was a battle of equal cultivation levels, I would be able to kill you with a single finger. As for now, I will need to exert a little bit more effort.
Qin Shuang suppressed his fury, approaching as he brandished his saber in his right hand, while his left hand grabbed on a streak of great Tao, which turned into a divine staff smashing down on Ling Han.
This was a display of his real battle prowess. Ling Han smiled faintly. His present battle prowess had also advanced to the 9th Heaven. Even if he could not match a peak stage 9th Heaven Monarch star, they were both at the same cultivation level. Any further than that, it would be pseudo-heavenly venerable tier. Then, so what if he was a slight bit weaker if they were both at the same level? Boom, boom, boom. The 2 great elites clashed. Ling Han did not shrink back in the slightest. Every strike was a clash of strength with Qin Shuang. In terms of battle prowess, Ling Han was indeed outmatched. Furthermore, he was at a greater disadvantage. However, in terms of physique, Ling Han was overwhelmingly tough. The only one in the Celestial King tier that could surpass him in this area was Heavenborn. The large black dog was another. After all, he too had cultivated indestructible Heaven's Scroll. Hence, while it was true that his battle prowess was outclassed, Ling Han practically did not suffer any damage. Qin Shuang only wielded a saw blade, and he wanted to wound Ling Han with his own battle prowess. It would be difficult. In fact, in the state Ling Han was in while channeling the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, he was completely capable of taking a celestial tool head-on. However, as long as he was not a heavenly venerate yet, he could only channel the indestructible Heaven's Scroll for only around 2 hours. 10 strikes, 100, 1000. Ling Han was extremely tenacious. "I have to admit that you are the strongest 7th Heaven I have ever seen." Qin Shuang suddenly stopped his attacks, seeming to admire Ling Han very much. Yet Ling Han shook his head. "Among the 9th Heavens I have met before, you yourself cannot be ranked in the top 10. For example, the large black dog, Du Shi, Amu, the Imperial Void Celestial King, and so on. Any one of them was stronger than Qin Shuang." Qin Shuang's mouth involuntarily twitched. He was passing judgment like this because he was on a superior level, and was looking down on Ling Han from a lofty position, but now that Ling Han spoke, Qin Shuang was directly demeaned and sent to rock bottom, so how was he able to continue maintain his noble lofty attitude? This brat's tongue was even more frightening than his battle prowess. "Bad-mouthed brat, you have truly angered me." Qin Shuang's whole body was trembling as a golden light exuded from his eyes. It was like tears, cascading down endlessly. Not only that, His hair also turned from gray to golden, and his skin became taut from its previous loosened state, turning golden as well. His stooped, aged figure reverted to an erect posture.
The present him seemed to have transformed from an old man in his 60s to 70s into a young man all of a sudden.
Ling Han's eyes flashed coldly. You're finally going to bring out your full strength now?
When one had reached the Celestial King tier, which of them did not have an unlimited lifespan, and no longer had to fear the immortal's tribulation?
So, how could a Celestial King possibly look like Qin Shuang?
Thus, it was either that there was something mentally wrong with him, and he deliberately disguised himself this way, or that he was cultivating some kind of strange cultivation technique, and this was the result of such cultivation.
Chapter 2670. 2670 Who is the prey? 2670 Who is the prey?
Ha ha ha.
Qin Shuang burst out into laughter. By now, his figure was tall and erect, sturdy, and golden all over. Everyone thought that I, Qin Shuang, hid myself in the martial academy, placing myself in the service of He Yufeng because I was being hunted. This is indeed one of the reasons, but the primary reason is for me to cultivate this divine feather holy metal technique. And now I have already reached small accomplishment level, so let me test my might on you, brat. Bouncing off his feet, pang. His whole person immediately shot out, his speed exceedingly high.
Ha!
Ling Han was surprised. This burst of power from Qin Shuang had not used the regulations of space, with him speeding up as he traversed through different space.
Instead, it was that the speed of his physical body was too high.
The degree of speed that cultivators could use was determined by two factors.
Firstly, extreme speed, and secondly, the tolerance level of the physical body. That was because the physical body would sustain a terrifying amount of pressure in high-speed movement, and even a Celestial King could possibly be torn apart by this kind of pressure.
Hence, for most Celestial Kings, their actual speed was far from reaching extreme speed. But just now, Qin Shuang's speed had definitely surpassed extreme speed, or rather, it had surpassed the extreme speed that he had previously maintained. And that was because he had transformed his body into metal, so his physique became extremely tough. This speed was too high. When Ling Han reacted, Qin Shuang had already pounced right in front of him, sweeping out with his blade. Ling Han could just barely raise the divine demon sword to parry this strike. Wang! The celestial tools clashed, creating a terrifying shock wave.
Pang pang pang!
Havoc was wreaked in space again, destroying the regulations in this space. Qin Shuang shouted loudly, and sent out another palm strike, aiming right for Ling Han's chest. Ling Han channeled the indestructible heaven scroll, taking this strike head-on. Clang! The attack landed, and Ling Han was instantly sent flying, whereas Qin Shuang erupted into laughter. He grabbed over new regulations from a different space for another switch. Ling Han was sent flying backwards, directly crashing into the borders of this great formation before being forcefully stopped. Seals were flickering on his chest, and they dimmed only after a long period of time. He felt a slight boiling sensation in his chest and an itch in his throat. He wanted to spit out a mouthful of blood.
He had already channeled the indestructible heaven scroll, yet he was actually still beaten to the point that he was almost throwing up blood.
The might of this attack was truly shocking. This is a technique that was created by a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Qin Shuang laughed loudly.
When I fled into the martial academy, and pled for the protection of He Yufeng, it was because I had killed the only son of a pseudo-heavenly venerate, and was just waiting for things to blow over.
Additionally, I would have time to cultivate this precious heavenly venerate technique. Realization dawned on Ling Han.
No wonder the other party could breach the defenses of the indestructible heaven scroll with a single strike. It was because this was a pseudo-heavenly venerate technique.
But because it included the word pseudo, it naturally could not compare with a real heavenly venerate technique. Thus, it had only caused enough impact to induce a boiling sensation in Ling Han's chest, and had not really injured his internal organs. This guy was really outrageously bold. He dared to kill even the only son of a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Ling Han scratched his head. To think he was talking about someone else. Wasn't he himself that kind of person as well? Moreover, if he killed anyone, he would definitely not submit to someone else and become a servant.
I have indeed overestimated you. You are nothing but a lackey.
Ling Han's expression was filled with disdain. Qin Shuang was enraged.
He had cultivated a precious pseudo-heavenly venerate technique, and was a peak stage 9th heaven monarch star, invincible in the celestial king tier, yet a puny 7th heaven celestial king actually dared to mock him like this.
Die! Qin Shuang charged out once more. Ling Han chuckled. This time, he made absolutely no attempt to dodge or evade. Just when Qin Shuang came close enough, Xiao, a black shadow suddenly shot out of Ling Han's chest, going forth to meet Qin Shuang. Clang! In an exchange of blows, Qin Shuang was instantly sent flying outwards. Ayahu! The black shadow took the form of a large dog. Who else could it be but the damn large black dog? You want to kill Grandpa Dog's human pet, but have you asked Grandpa Dog for permission first? The large black dog stood on his hind legs, going into the posture of preparing to throw a punch. Light glinted on his iron underwear, and accompanied by his perverse expression, he looked extraordinarily despicable. Ling Han couldn't help but shoot out his foot in a kick. Damn dog, whom are you calling a human pet? You are actually in the martial academy? Qin Shuang was stunned. He had investigated Ling Han's information in close detail, and knew that he was friends with the large black dog, but the large black dog was clearly not in the martial academy, so how could he suddenly appear? Grandpa Dog is supremely clever, and knew that someone was scheming against my underling, so Grandpa Dog came back to destroy this couple of trash. The large black dog answered as he crossed his paws behind him, expressing how clever he was, and how everything was under his control. Ling Han wanted to kick him again. It was clear that this damn dog had failed in robbing a pseudo-heavenly venerable tier precious formation, and that was why he had fled back to the martial academy. Ling Han had initially planned to show up for the appointment alone. In any case, it would not be difficult for one of his strength to leave. However, the large black dog had volunteered himself, so Ling Han brought him along. Qin Shuang frowned, but immediately looked confident again. So what if there is another one of you? I only have to expend a little more effort. He charged out once more, sweeping out his blade in another slash, and appearing extremely confident in himself. In front of Grandpa Dog, trash like you thinks you can be arrogant? The large black dog shot out a paw and struck, taking the celestial tool head-on. Pang, pang, pang. When one had reached the height of the 9th heaven, he would be equal with regulations, and a celestial tool only represented the strongest destructive power at the level of regulations. Thus, a 9th heaven celestial king had completely no need to fear a celestial tool. With regulations entwined around them, taking a celestial tool head-on was only a small matter. The two great 9th heaven celestial kings exchanged blows. It could be seen that the large black dog very soon got the upper hand. In his last life, he had followed the karmic life heavenly venerable, and cultivated a supreme cultivation technique. However, limited by his aptitude, he could not cultivate the indestructible heaven scroll, and was also unable to take that last step. However, after the karmic life heavenly venerable died, he used a secret technique, discarding his last life of his own volition, and nurtured a new life in his old body. This process really was fraught with fatal danger. The black dog had successfully begun his second life. This was different from Ji Wuming. He had not reincarnated, but had rather been reborn on the foundations of his old body. The difficulty of this was even greater, but the range of qualitative change would also be greater. For the present large black dog, his evolution index should have directly spiked to 12, and there was an extremely great chance that he would be able to push open the doors to the heavenly venerable tier. The large black dog howled. It was not enough that he had the upper hand now. He was still continuously spouting insults. That was how extremely mean he was. If Ling Han's skill at insults could only be considered the introductory level, the large black dog had really reached the level of great accomplishment. Qin Shuang's gloominess could be imagined. Not only did he have to be thrashed physically by the large black dog, havoc was also wreaked within his spirit as well. This caused the pressure on him to be as heavy as a mountain. They had not been fighting for very long before he lost all his fighting spirit. Qin Shuang decided to flee. Otherwise, it was possible that he would die from his own fury right here. He had hold of the core of the formation. With a single thought, the great formation would be immediately removed. Xiao. His figure moved, and was just about to flee. I was just waiting for you. Ling Han smirked coldly. Pang. He pushed off strongly with his feet, his body art completely activated as he shot towards Qin Shuang as rapidly as a shooting star, slashing out with the divine demon sword. Qin Shuang was completely focused on breaking free, so he had no wish to drag things out with Ling Han.
He pushed out a palm to strike Ling Han, wanting to send the latter backwards. He did not dare to use his full power, or it was possible that he would not be able to burst out with full speed when the large black dog caught up to him.
That would be terrible.
Yet, when the divine demon's sword sliced towards him, Qin Shuang suddenly realized that there was something off. Ling Han's strike was actually more than 100 times stronger than it had been before.
How was this possible?
Qin Shuang's expression changed drastically, but it was already too late for him to switch to another move or increase the power of his strike.
Shwa!
The sword swept past, and one of his arms was instantly severed, and the course of the sword did not stop.
It continued to sweep past the left side of his ribs, leaving behind a deep wound.
Chapter 2671. 2671 never expected this, right?
2671 never expected this, right? Qin Shuang yelled in pain.
The damage this attack caused to him was truly too great. However, Ling Han's offensive did not end at that. Ling Han raised his left hand, and Z9-colored light flickered as he pressed his palm down on Qin Shuang. Qin Shuang was already no longer capable of changing his course, so he could only take this strike head-on.
Clang!
His palm landed, and Qin Shuang's whole person exploded. The might of this strike was in no way inferior to the slash from the divine demon's sword. Ling Han panted, but his movements did not pause. Picking up his sword, he continued his pursuit. Qin Shuang had indeed been blasted quite badly, his whole person torn into pieces. However, his head was still complete, so he did not die. For Celestial Kings, this was not a fatal injury. As long as Qin Shuang was given some time, he would be able to regrow his limbs and recover his battle prowess very quickly. Ling Han had used the 9 transformations divine scroll in the first strike, increasing his battle prowess countless times over, and he had channeled the 5 elements lightning technique in his second strike. Though he had not channeled the 2 heavenly venerate techniques at the same time, the gap between his use of them was really too short, so it still caused his blood to bubble, and made him feel very terrible.
But now was not the time for rest. He should take the chance to follow up on his attack, and kill his enemy in a single stroke. How was a head going to compete with Ling Han in speed? Ling Han caught up to him, and followed up with a strike from his sword. Qin Shuang's head was pierced right through with the divine demon's sword. His mind crumbled, and he ultimately died. Ling Han withdrew his sword, and grabbed out with both hands. He immediately grabbed over the spatial god tool that Qin Shuang had carried on him. This formation technique is not bad. In the future, Grandpa Dog will no longer have to worry that anyone will be able to flee from him. The large black dog took away the core that controlled the formation that Qin Shuang had on him. He began to eagerly stow the formation away. Ling Han was also interested in this formation, but the large black dog couldn't just help him for nothing, after all. Otherwise, it would be difficult to ask him for help again in the future. Ling Han extended his divine sense into Qin Shuang's spatial god tool and did a sweep. An alchemical pill appeared in his hand. Though he was already a 5-star alchemist, he still could not recognize this alchemical pill. However, he could be certain that there was a powerful aura contained within. In fact, it was superior even to great Celestial King tier pills. Thinking back to what Qin Shuang had previously said, about how he had moved out because he had received a Heavenly Venerate pill from Ma Yuhai. Then this was the Heavenly Venerate pill. Heavenly Venerate pill. What is its use? Ling Han knew this was something good, but did not know its exact effects. What? Heavenly Venerate pill. Quick, give it to Grandpa Dog. The large black dog immediately leaped over, stretching out his paw shamelessly. Ling Han hurriedly stowed away the Heavenly Venerate pill. Scram, you have already taken a formation technique, and you still want this as well? This is a treasure after all. The more the better. The large black dog was extremely shameless. It was impossible to make him feel conscientious. Ling Han only gave him the middle finger. Only then did the large black dog say, "A Heavenly Venerate pill is a biological precious medicine concocted when a Heavenly Venerate extracts his own blood essence combined with his personal martial intent. It would be greatly beneficial even to Celestial Kings."
However, it would be best if Grandpa Dog ingested it. It can help Grandpa Dog advance into the heavenly venerable tier much sooner.
Ling Han merely chuckled.
This damn dog's eyes were spinning endlessly when he was talking. Who the fuck would believe him?
Ling Han stowed away Qin Shuang's celestial tool.
The large black dog also helped him to suppress it, erasing the martial intent contained within, and making it easier for the divine demon sword to devour it. On this point, the large black dog did not say anything, because the issue of whether the divine demon sword could advance to become a heavenly venerate tool was a matter that implicated the serious problem of whether the karmic life heavenly venerable could be revived or not. "Brat, do you want Grandpa Dog to accompany you to the appointment?" The large black dog asked as he continued to play around with the foundation stone of the formation that he had just obtained.
This was very simple.
There were only 4 pillars, but after they were buried in the ground, the area that the 4 pillars enclosed would become an independent space.
No need. Ling Han shook his head. If it was only Ma Yuhai, he naturally would not take it to heart.
The man and dog went their separate ways. The large black dog still had to get more divine metal. Following the beginning of the cooperation with the Wang Clan, the day for the divine demon sword to advance was getting closer and closer, and it also made the large black dog become very motivated. Because Ling Han had delayed a very long time on the way here, when he arrived at Great Fiery Mountain, the day was close to ending.
"He's not coming, is he?"
On the mountain, a great many people had deliberately come to watch the battle, but they had already waited until the moon was hanging high in the skies, and the day was about to end in just a little bit more time, yet there was still no sight of Ling Han.
Then, it was likely impossible for him to still come.
Has he shrunk from battle?
It can't be, can it? Previously, hasn't Ling Han defeated Ma Yuhai with a single move? Why would he be afraid now?
It can only be said that it was Ma Yuhai who had been careless before, and Ling Han had just won in a stroke of good fortune.
Now that he knows that there is no way that he will succeed 2 times, he has cowered.
Hee, I didn't think he was this kind of person.
Everyone was discussing spiritedly, while Ma Yuhai revealed a smirk. Not only did Ma Yuhai want Ling Han to die, he also wanted to redeem his fortune. Otherwise, how was it possible that the little princess of the Wang clan changed her mind about him? Ma Yuhai was very aware that there was no way Ling Han could come. With Qin Shuang moving, Ling Han should have long since been lying dead somewhere. And as for Ma Yuhai, he had been waiting here in full public all this while, so he naturally had absolutely nothing to do with Ling Han's death. Ma Yuhai spread out a hand, and said, "Everyone, it is a disappointment. Please return." Everyone stood up, their heart filled with disdain for Ling Han, to think he had actually cowered from battle. "The day has not yet ended. Why is everyone in such a rush?" An even voice rang out. Everyone paused. Ling Han, it was Ling Han who was finally here. Meanwhile, Ma Yuhai's expression changed drastically. Why was Ling Han here? Then what about Qin Shuang?
Could it be that he had not managed to ambush Ling Han?
If that was the case, that would be fine, and Ling Han clearly would not know Ma Yuhai's scheme. However, if Qin Shuang had already made his move, and Ling Han had still appeared here, the problem about that would be huge. Ma Yuhai couldn't stop trembling. What on earth had happened? Ling Han strode forwards, and arrived at the summit, where he faced Ma Yuhai directly. He smiled.
"When you see me appear, you must be very stunned, right?"
Ma Yuhai forcefully retained his composure. What would I be stunned by?
It was I that asked you out for this battle, and it was you procrastinating and only appearing at this moment.
Ling Han set his eyes on Ma Yuhai, and after a good few breaths' time he finally said, "You asked someone to ambush me on the way here, planning to kill me. Seeing me appear alive and well, you must be feeling very perturbed, right?" "What?" Hearing Ling Han's words, a flurry of commotion exploded among the spectators in an instant. Was that really the case? It's quite logical. Otherwise, Ma Yuhai has clearly suffered a terrible defeat, and there is no clear improvement in his strength, so what is the reason he would dare to challenge Ling Han to a battle again? Hiss, that is too underhanded, isn't it? Hee, if the Martial Academy interrogated the murderer, and he confessed everything, even Lord Ma Feng would not be able to save him. At the very least, he would be expelled from the Martial Academy. That would truly be an extreme humiliation. Ma Yuhai's hands were tightly clenched into fists. His heart was also filled with unease.
What if Qin Shuang had really been apprehended, and confessed the truth of how the two of them had collaborated together and schemed to kill a disciple of the martial academy?
He would be done for.
Just when he was in a daze, Ling Han suddenly sped up, and arrived right in front of Ma Yuhai in a quick leap before throwing a punch at him.
Clang! Ma Yuhai was instantly sent flying from this strike.
While in midair, he already spluttered out a mouthful of blood, along with a considerable number of teeth. If he hadn't been so distracted, he would definitely not have been sent flying with a single slap like this, but who asked for chaos to run wild inside his heart now? Added with the fact that Ling Han's burst of speed was really too fast, Ma Yuhai had once again fallen with a single strike from Ling Han. Ma Yuhai collapsed onto the ground, blowing up a layer of dust. He was just about to scramble to his feet when he felt a weight on his face. A foot forcefully pushed him back to the ground. I will spare your life this time, but there would definitely be no second time. Ling Han threatened menacingly. With one foot stepping on a prodigy, he swept his eyes over the surroundings, and everyone couldn't help but lower their head, not daring to even make eye contact with him.
Chapter 2672. 2672. He Yufeng exits seclusion. 2672. He Yufeng exits seclusion. At this time, the moon hung in the center of the sky, and this day had just ended. Everyone was shocked. Just how much time had Ling Han taken for this trip? But he had already struck Ma Yuhai to the ground. Just how wide did the power gap have to be between the two of them?
But there were a large number of people who had a discerning eye, and they revealed the truth. Ling Han is indeed very strong, but it is not definite that Ma Yuhai is weaker than him either. But last time, when he had been defeated by Ling Han with a single strike, a psychological trauma must have been left behind in Ma Yuhai's heart. This time, added with how his plot was exposed, his emotions are even more disturbed. It is probable that he would not realize it even if thunder was rumbling, and adding how Ling Han is really too fast, that is what led to him being defeated with a single strike again. Facing Ling Han truly is Ma Yuhai's misfortune.
Everyone shook their head.
But there were also people who were curious, guessing who the person Ma Yuhai had asked for help had been.
That person must be stronger than Ma Yuhai. At the ninth heaven.
Monarch Star or Supreme Monarch Star. Everyone put the Monarch Stars and Supreme Monarch Stars of the ninth heaven in the Martial Academy together, yet discovered there was an overwhelmingly large number of suspects. This was because this was the world's paramount martial academy, which had gathered all the prodigies in the Genesis world. Furthermore, the majority of prodigies naturally would also be stuck at the ninth heaven. Thus, the number of prodigies at this level was the highest.
Amu, Du Shi, Can Yu, and the Imperial Void Celestial King were all placed under suspicion.
Yet Ling Han couldn't be bothered.
Since Ma Yuhai wanted to start a feud with him, then he'd oblige him. Ling Han had not killed Ma Yuhai this time. It was not because he didn't want to, but because he could not. After all, Ma Yuhai wanting to kill Ling Han was only Ling Han's one-sided claim. Now that Qin Shuang was dead, if Ling Han killed Ma Yuhai as well, there really would be no one alive to give testimony on his behalf. The crime of killing a disciple of the Martial Academy was too heavy.
The main reason is still that my strength is inadequate, Ling Han thought. If I was a heavenly venerate, what would the simple matter of killing an eighth heaven celestial king be worth? Hence, only if I become a heavenly venerate will I truly be able to transcend, and be above all rules. Ling Han returned to the Martial Academy, and once again buried himself in alchemy. The amount of divine metal he had obtained was increasing, but when the number came to 40 pieces, even the Wang Clan was starting to feel troubled. Divine metal was not just cabbages that could be gotten anywhere. They had some supplies of their own, and also bought some more. They also traded for some in exchange for celestial pills with other noble clans. However, 40 pieces was already their limit. In the short term they would not be able to get more than that. Thus, Ling Han had the Wang Clan use other resources as replacement. He also wanted to advance the indestructible Celestial King physique to the 9th level. His work in alchemy slowed down as a result because he had used most of the medicinal ingredients that the Wang Clan had gathered over several epochs. Ling Han took the Heavenly Venerate pill and ingested it. He was in great need of strength at present. Boom! When he ingested the alchemical pill,
It turned into a fiery dragon that wreaked havoc in Ling Han's body. A powerful intent blazed, as if this was a high and lofty god that others could only worship. This was the pseudo-heavenly venerate divine sense that belonged to Ma Feng. Ling Han humped. A mere pseudo-heavenly venerate wants me to submit to him? If a pseudo-heavenly venerate really arrived, he would still only be able to suppress Ling Han's physical body. It was absolutely impossible to make Ling Han's will submit. That was because Ling Han had already created his own path. Merely in the aspect of quality, he was not inferior to a heavenly venerate. And now even the will of a pseudo-heavenly venerate wanted to suppress him. Was this a joke? This was Ling Han's body, and Ling Han was the king here. Under his aggressive suppression, even the will of a pseudo-heavenly venerate could only submit. Boom! A frightening power spread out throughout Ling Han's body, increasing his cultivation level. A first-tier heavenly venerate has grasped the unique power of a certain dimension, and as for a pseudo-heavenly venerate, he can already come into contact with this kind of power and extract it to temper himself. From a certain angle, he is a ninth heaven celestial king that has cultivated a body art. Ling Han glimpsed a sliver of essence of Ma Feng's cultivation path from this heavenly venerate pill. It was no wonder that this pill could possibly help a ninth heaven celestial king break through to the heavenly venerable tier. But this was useless to Ling Han. He had long since created his own path. In fact, he could even extract void particle energy to temper his body. What he needed was merely the increase to his cultivation level. 10 days later, he had completely refined the medicinal effects contained within this heavenly venerate pill. This is only an alchemical pill that a pseudo-heavenly venerate concocted, so it cannot be called a heavenly venerate pill yet. However, it has still advanced my cultivation level to the late stage of the 7th heaven, so it is quite good. If I could have another 3 or 4 such pills, I should be able to reach the peak stage. I would then be able to break through to the 8th heaven. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh. Recently, time was really crawling for Ma Yuhai. He felt uneasy every single day. He feared that his plot had been exposed, and that he would completely fall from grace. He went to check on Qin Shuang, but the latter had already vanished. If Qin Shuang was dead, Ma Yuhai would be fine. As long as he denied everything, the Martial Academy could not possibly sentence him for a crime with just Ling Han's side of the story. Furthermore, Ma Yuhai was a son of a pseudo-heavenly venerate. Without absolute proof, who would dare pluck out his spirit and search for the truth? But if Qin Shuang was captured, that would be terrible. 1 month, half a year, 3 years. Time passed very quickly, and no one appeared from the authorities of the Martial Academy to question Ma Yuhai about the matter of Ling Han being ambushed, so he finally relaxed his heavy heart gradually. From the look of things, Qin Shuang really had died. 4 years later, groundbreaking news came out. He Yufeng had exited seclusion. Who was He Yufeng? He was from an even higher grade than AMU, Du Shi, and Can Yu. He was a supreme prodigy of the term before last. Furthermore, he had another prestigious identity. His father was a 4th-tier heavenly venerate by the name of He Rong, holding the title Bloody Mist. He Yufeng was the type to keep a very low profile, constantly staying in a state of seclusion. There were pitifully few people that knew of him, but that was definitely no reason to deny that he was strong. In his batch, he was one of the top elites, and could practically be invincible. If that had been all, then it wouldn't have been anything notable that he had exited seclusion. It would not have caused such great commotion. More importantly, he had taken the step that all celestial kings dreamt of, and become a pseudo-heavenly venerate. This was too shocking, and caused an uproar in the whole Martial Academy. Those as strong as AMU Du Shi, and the other big shots had already reached the peak stage of the 9th heaven about 10 billion years ago, but 10 billion years had passed, and they were still stuck where they had started. Why was this? Was their talent inadequate? Did they not work hard enough? Did they not have enough luck? Wrong. They were equipped with all the conditions for breaking through to the heavenly venerable tier, yet were still not able to cross over to this new threshold. To become a heavenly venerate, a very extensive time of appreciation of the heaven and earth was required. Who would be as lucky as Ling Han, having been able to become the overlord of a realm? He Yufeng had advanced to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, and this was absolutely authentic. In his batch of disciples, he was also the only one who had reached the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier so far. This definitely was related to He Yufeng's help.
He had prepared countless cultivation resources for his son, and they were all the highest grade of treasures. However, it was still undeniable that He Yufeng had the necessary ability. This was the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier, and all the people who had attained this level in history had been people at the peak of their generation. Previously, Ling Han had defeated Heavenborn, and was very well known for it, but as the news of He Yufeng breaking through to the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier spread out, this news naturally overshadowed Ling Han's feat completely. No matter how strong a celestial king was, compared with a heavenly venerate, they were all trash. When Ma Yuhai heard about this, he instantly leaped sky high. He was too excited. He hurriedly begged for an audience with He Yufeng. The latter subordinate had died by Ling Han's hand, so He Yufeng should be extremely furious. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.